Good morning. It's Wednesday. It's February 15th. It's day 797. I'm kidding. It's day 18 of the Murdaugh murders double homicide trial. This morning, we are going to start off with arguing motions. The judge, I think, is living for the tea. He's like, tell me everything. Yesterday, when the defense was talking about whether or not the roadside should come in and whether or not Jim Griffin's statements to Maggie Murdaugh's sister were hearsay, the judge is like, well, you've brought that name up several times. You've brought that name up several times in cross-examination, defense. So I don't know what the judge will let in today. I'll give you my thoughts on that in a moment. But the judge wants to hear all of it. And aren't we all the judge right now? Aren't we all the judge? We're like, just give me something. But the fact that all of us are like, please just give me something is a really good indication that a lot of us don't have a good handle on the prosecution's theory of this case because they have not made it clear. That is not on you. I see a lot of comments like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not understanding this. Look, I've been a lawyer 17 years. I still can't follow what the prosecution is trying to argue with their motive. They have not made it clear. They've got just a few more witnesses to clear it up, or they are going to have some really big problems in getting a guilty verdict in this case. And they might not. Do I think this jury will come back not guilty? I don't know. Do I think the highest probability of what this jury might do is a hang? Yep, because this prosecution has not been clear at all, but they're moving the needle with the inconsistencies. This is a circumstantial case. Circumstantial evidence is just as valid as direct evidence. And we're going to talk about what that means in just a second. I'm going to make sure we're ready to go when the court comes in and says, bring the action, because the jury's not coming back till 10:30 and we've got motions. I don't know what's happening with my hair this morning. It's fine. We're going to roll the intro. We're going to pull up the court feeds and we're going to talk about all of it. I am looking forward to some spicy arguments with very tired lawyers this morning. Who's here for spicy, tired attorneys? Me. I'm here for it. I'm the problem. It's me. Hey there. I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not... Let's get into it. I don't know, y'all. My setup is just fighting back with me the last 2 days, but we're going to get there. We're going to get to questions. I just want to make sure that we are live and in court so that when the court takes the bench, we are there the second that he does. And that means making sure that the two different feeds that I use are up. Oh, one of them is already down. That's weird. Miguelina, the WLTX feed is down. They stopped their stream. So let me go to one more and make sure that those are up, because that is the first thing, and finding a feed that's not going to cut to commercials. So we're going to go to, oh, it looks like they're already in court.
Yes, sir.
All right. So they're just starting to argue. So we're going to pull that up real quick. They're on time this morning.
I sent a memo early this morning. Hopefully you've had a chance.
All right. I'm going to go
see that.
back just a moment, because they just started court like 30 seconds ago. And the other feeds were down, which is odd to me. And then we'll do a summary real quick. All right.
Ready.
The judge asked Dick if he was ready. And
Who's
then
first? I'm happy to go first. Obviously,
Your Honor, since we filed a memo and we have not added to it, I'd be more than happy for the Attorney General.
they're just on time this morning. We're ready for the arguments, though.
Your Honor, and I sent a memo early this morning. Hopefully you've had a chance to see that. A lot of it reiterates what we had previously filed in our prior motions.
Well, don't do that.
And again, as it relates to this particular evidence, as I argued
Don't do that, Emily.
yesterday, consciousness of guilt is a very recognized
Oh, they
class
didn't
of
argue it
evidence
yesterday.
as admissible
You didn't argue
evidence
consciousness
of
of guilt
motive and
yesterday.
identity
Now you're
in
arguing
South
it.
Carolina courts. Obviously, that we've cited a
They
number
have
of
found their
cases
legal
in more
arguments.
classic senses of consciousness of guilt evidence, such as witness intimidation,
I have
flight,
to sped up
but any sort of
just a
evasive
little.
action, any sort of action to evade detection or throw off the scent has been admissible in our courts.
He said witness intimidation. Did you hear him? He said witness intimidation. He said witness intimidation. That's very interesting because I think there's an argument that Murdaugh's conversations with with Blanca and with Shelley could be considered that. I've got this at 1.25, so we will catch up to live. But witness intimidation is interesting, and he's arguing consciousness of guilt, which he did not argue earlier. So let's go. So yes, he is sped up just a little bit because we'll catch up to live because I went back.
Your Honor, I see the clerk from Barnwell here, and I had a murder case in front of her not too long ago, or it's been a while. But in any event, in that particular case, the defendant had actually found in his car was a voodoo root that said, had on there, protect me from murder charges, save me, judge, early, protect me from murder charges. And ultimately, that was admitted and in an unpublished opinion affirmed as evidence of consciousness of guilt and evasive conduct because of what it meant to the defendant. And so I just point that out as an example as to how expansive that can be. When we look at this case, and again, one thing about this case, Your Honor, is it's intricate and complex on a scale that I think none of us have ever seen. And so we have to look at it within that vein and in that context. And what we have here, Your Honor, why this is relevant evidence of consciousness of guilt, it really doesn't matter what exactly happened on the side of the road, because that's not the focus of what the state is seeking to do. What the state is seeking to do, and what we believe is relevant and admissible under these rules, is to show what the defendant said about it and the fact that that was not true. And what he said about it, of course, was that he was on the side of the road, he had a flat tire, and with a car that has run flats, that he was changing the tire, and that a nice man stopped, offering help, and then all of a sudden he was shot in the back of the head. And obviously, the initial reaction we've heard from Ms. Proctor, we've heard and can hear from other witnesses, and the initial reaction was that, oh my gosh, the real killers are back, the bad guys are back, they've now targeted Alec. And the other thing that's crucial about this that connects it all together is not only does he make that claim, that statement about being targeted by an unknown assailant, as things were heating up on him in this investigation, that then causes people to immediately assume that he's been targeted and it has nothing, in no way could he be responsible for Moselle. But we also have to look at the symmetry of this particular event with what happened on June the 7th. And on June the 7th, as we know, and Your Honor's heard extensive testimony, both in camera and in this trial, he is confronted about the fares fees that morning. There's all kinds of circumstances that have been put into evidence that are moving as to a perfect storm arriving on that day. And of course, what happens that night? Maggie and Paul are murdered. Community rallies. Everything changes. We have the same thing happening on September 3rd and September 4th, because finally, despite his best efforts, the law firm has become privy and wise to what's been going on with his years of embezzlement and theft. They confront him. But more importantly, if we go back to those fares fees, which are very crucial and temporally connected to everything that happened on June 7th, is the fact that you've heard testimony from Chris Wilson that he is calling Mr. Murdaugh, trying to get to meet with him because he wants to know what's up. He particularly wants to know what about the $192,000 of those fares fees that he covered for Mr. Murdaugh. And they have that confrontation on the porch of Alameda that afternoon, or early, right before noon, as was testified to. And what happens? Yet again, within a couple of hours, the side of the road happens, and everyone is rushing to Alec Murdaugh's aid again. The fact that he had just been exposed for embezzlement is quickly forgotten about. And of course, everybody's assuming, oh my gosh, it must be the real bad guys, when in fact, it was him all along. And so that is extremely relevant evidence.
The real bad guys.
Just to add
it's
into,
him. He's the problem. It's him.
Your Honor, is we do have the concept of what's been opened the door, what issues have been joined by the defense and put up here. And of course, that's how this issue all arose yesterday with the testimony of Miss Marianne Proctor. So we think it's very admissible as clear consciousness of guilt evidence. It's admissible under 404. I've also argued, without getting in great detail, when we talk about
we're just catching up because I paused.
Talk about common scheme or plan. And again, this isn't the kind of common scheme or plan that is typical, but we have to look at this case through a lens that recognizes just the intricacies and the complexity of a set of circumstances like we've never seen. And so all those legal theories, Your Honor, we would assert justify admission of this evidence. I will also say that this expresses to the defense that it's the state's intent to really quickly move from point A to point B. We are not here to try to litigate what happened on the side of the road in its entirety. I believe that the testimony about this could be done in just over an hour, and that includes playing the recorded statement. There's a number of recorded statements. I'm not trying to play all of those. It would just be simply having the agent come in, relate the story that Alec Murdaugh told to 911 and told to law enforcement, that initial story about the unknown assailant, the fact that the investigation continued and additional information came to light that conflicted with that, and that he was eventually confronted with that. And then there's a recorded statement at the end in which he admits that, in fact, what he had told law enforcement was a lie. And so I'm trying it would be a very focused presentation to just get from point A to point B for purposes of this trial and the relevance that it has to this trial. So for those reasons, Your Honor, we would assert that limited presentation is admissible for those purposes.
Your Honor.
We need the 911 and the third interview, I think.
And we agree that State versus Cartwright would be applicable to this situation. And it has 4 criteria about a suicide.
It's not a suicide, though.
They seem to think that the unmistakable nexus exists by clear and convincing evidence linking the suicide attempt with guilty conscience about the murder. The facts are that he was confronted by the law firm on Friday, fired on Friday, and then
Puda's sped up too. He just doesn't talk as fast at base level.
Eddie Smith to shoot him in the head, thinking that it would get his son, Buster Murdaugh, $12 million in insurance money that would otherwise be excluded by the suicide exemption in his
had expired.
Insurance policy. So all this is linked to is the financial crimes, not the murder. We're here trying to murder. And yet all the evidence, not all, but a significant amount of the evidence we've heard over the last 3.5 weeks has been about the financial crimes. This is guilty knowledge of the financial crimes, not the murder. And this under 404, 403 analysis under Cartwright would not be admissible. I'd further say this: if he's looking for a common scheme, that is, that when he's about to be found out or he's being found out, he would have killed Buster, based on his theory, to distract. This isn't a distraction. This is an end. And clearly, we haven't heard in the tape interview that he initiated from Detox in Atlanta, in which he explained he was killing himself to get this money for Buster because his financial crimes had been found out. This is 3 months after the murder.
This is a good argument. 3 months later.
It's not connected by time. It's not temporal under the 404, 403 analysis, and certainly it's not evidence of guilty knowledge about, his own statement would indicate that nothing to do with the murder. It's only about the financial crimes. And he contacted SLED, and on that recording, myself, Mr. Griffin, and Mr. Murdaugh from Detox. He finally had detoxed and wasn't on drugs anymore. And he has a great detailed statement about Eddie Smith buying the drugs for him over a number of years, millions of dollars worth, and how Eddie didn't hesitate to shoot him in the head on the side of the road. I don't know how that is relevant. Now, maybe the drug piece is, but they've got statements from Eddie Smith about what drugs he bought and what he did with those. So we would oppose going forward on any roadside shooting evidence. We think the prejudicial far outweighs the probative, and we'd ask Your Honor to not allow them to do that.
Yes, sir. Your Honor, very quickly, I do want to distinguish again between what Mr. Harpootlian keeps wanting to argue about, and that's the prospect of there being some sort of suicide on the side of the road. Again, the state's real focus is not exactly on what happened on the side of the road. What's important,
it's what he said about
and this is, I think, different from a typical Cartwright such situation, is what the defendant said about it. And the fact that he immediately tells this lie about him being targeted by an unknown assailant. And that is what directly connects it back to Moselle. And that's immediately what everybody assumed. The first thing that jumped in their mind is that connection back to Moselle. That connection and the next is unmistakable. So it's not as much about a traditional type of Cartwright analysis. That's not what I'm arguing here. What I'm arguing here is his explanation for what happened and the fact that that ultimately was not true. And that nexus, I believe, is very clear. I think the other one would be clear too, but that former nexus is the stronger one, and that is the focus of what the state is trying to offer here today.
I don't think he intended to harm himself.
This is character evidence, which is precluded under the only exception to 404, 403, Your Honor's allowed is motive. Why did he do it? It's just incredible because if you put this up, you're going to hear from
drama.
One of the SLED agents, when he woke up in the hospital and his skull had been fractured, he had a brain bleed.
I think that's in controversy.
This is when he concocted that story. He expected never to wake up.
So, this was a scheme
He asked
to
for
draw.
his
No,
insurance
if it
card.
was a scheme, it was created after Eddie Smith meant to shoot him. Actually, if he'd been a millimeter to the left, his brains would have been blown out. He just missed, but knocked him out, fractured his skull.
Huh.
That's all I have.
He wasn't knocked out. He
Are
was
not
very
the facts.
lucid.
He's telling
on
that story at the scene
911
to
call.
people who show up. He's out of the gate. That's what he's saying, that he was attacked by an unknown assailant. There's an ambulance video where the deputy comes in, and that's exactly the story he tells. This is not.
I would concede he's correct. Once he realizes he's still alive, he tells that story. But obviously, he didn't intend to be still alive.
He
In
doesn't
other words, it's
wake
not a
up in the
scheme that was
hospital.
concocted
Hoots.
at any point. The scheme, if it's a scheme, was concocted after he realized he wasn't dead.
Well, the financial evidence was allowed.
3 months is a
on the
long time,
issue
is the
of
hard thing.
Motive.
It is. And it's not motive after the
This
fact.
evidence,
all.
I find, goes beyond motive, or is not evidence of motive,
Yeah, it's
but
3 months later.
more toward common scheme or plan.
What I said yesterday.
It does not survive the logical relevancy test, and it goes more toward showing propensity to commit violent acts, which would cause it not to survive the 403 analysis. I believe that to allow this evidence is a bridge too far, going down this path of allowing essentially any and all evidence in. We have guardrails. The court is to place guardrails to keep things within a reasonable realm. And I believe this, as I stated, will be a bridge too far. It does not meet the logical relevancy test. I agree with the defense that it would be admissible perhaps if the trial was a trial on the financial
Crime.
theft issues, but not on the murder. So I grant the motion to exclude this evidence at this time. And of course, as we have seen, things change.
So the judge
knows?
is keeping out
Understood, Your Honor.
further information of the roadside incident,
All right.
which puts the prosecution in a bit of a pickle because they've already
Tell the jurors
heard.
10 or 10:30?
You told them 10:30.
10:30. Yeah.
I said 10, Mr. Waters said 10:30.
Oh my God.
So if there's any acrimony here,
Your Honor,
please,
I
focus
said
it where it
10.
belongs.
I said 10. He's just insufferable sometimes.
I routinely underestimate the time, so the one time I overestimated.
It's fair.
We tested the jurors this morning, and happy to say that they all tested negative. So
Well, there you go.
We're in good shape with the jury. All right. Any other matters we need to discuss during this lag time?
Yes, I just think Mr. Waters and I were talking extensively about when he's going to rest his case. We think that should be, or he thinks that should be, he thinks tomorrow morning. I'm projecting maybe tomorrow afternoon, but on Friday we expect to start our case. And to that end, if something were to happen between now and Friday morning, we are flying in experts, and don't need to tell Your Honor how expensive that process is. So even if they don't finish, we may ask the court to allow our witness. It's a footwear expert. It's not anything explosive. But if he's here and they can't finish by Friday afternoon, we'd ask the court at that time to allow him to testify out of order, simply to save thousands of dollars of him have to come back the following Tuesday. And I haven't asked Mr. Waters about that, but I want to put it on.
I mean, I'm certainly going to be within reason accommodating to the defense and things like that.
Great. I just thought I ought to mention it so it doesn't look like a surprise to the court. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else then?
We have lots to talk about.
Stand by, Your Honor. Excuse me, please.
Stand by. Stand by. a footwear expert. So with the roadside incident, the prosecution is in a little bit of a pickle, I think, that they've kind of put themselves in. They, I think, anticipated the judge letting this in because they've gotten almost everything they've wanted in. However, the roadside incident is 3 months after.
We have nothing, Your Honor.
Thanks.
All right, we'll take a recess then for about 15, 20, or 30 minutes, or 37 minutes.
Or 37
The jury is here, so if you all are ready to go, we can start before 10:30.
I mean, if they're all here, that's fine. If I could maybe just have about 10 minutes to reset and 10, 15 minutes, and then we can get started.
All right,
They need to have
take
a
about
chit chat.
15 minutes then.
They need to have a chit chat. They need to have a chit chat. Oh no, we're not off on Friday. What's a footwear expert? I have no idea what they are going to bring in for a footwear expert. I suspect it will go to footprints or a foot mark on the back of Maggie Murdaugh's leg. That's my suspicion because they've brought it up again and again and again, and nobody marked it as a footprint, and they had a footprint expert come in other things. So let's talk about what happened this morning. That's what I think we're going to see. I think the prosecution worked themselves into a little bit of a pickle with this, and I think they didn't anticipate the court keeping out the roadside incident. But the roadside incident is somewhat far afield because it is 3 months after this murder. And when you get that far out, it's definitely not motive. The motive doesn't extend past the murders happening. They already happened. It's not to evade detection. It's not like he's running or dyeing his hair or changing his name or fleeing in a white Bronco or whatever it is. He's not doing that. So it's not flight and consciousness of guilt in that way. And he's not even really trying, I don't think, to take himself out. He's trying to get this life insurance policy, but I think that that's concocted too. That's my personal opinion. I think this is what the prosecution says it is, that he's getting confronted again, and then he has this other incident, and it's like, look, the real killer is still out there, and they're coming after the Murdaugh family. The family's being hunted. So even though he's disgraced and he's been fired and he's been arrested on other things, the real killers are still out there. So I think that that's more likely than this life insurance policy. I think the life insurance policy is also a lie. But we will see. We know that Alec Murdaugh is a liar. That has been well and thoroughly proven at this point. So what happened this morning is that the prosecution, again, argued more briefly than I expected that they wanted to get this in under consciousness of guilt or motive or plan. Or did they say motive? I don't think they said motive. Consciousness of guilt or plan. And the court said, no, this is too far. This is too far. So it's kept out until something changes. Something might change to make it more relevant. But at this point, it hasn't become more relevant. And I think that that's fair. We run the risk of getting very far afield if all that comes in. I think the 911 call is fair. I would have argued it for a different reason because I think that 911 call shows that he sounds very much like he did in the 911 call at Moselle. But again, it's 3 months later. So trying to tie that into absence of mistake and saying, look, he called 911 the same way. He sounds the same after he knows he set this up. That's absence of mistake. He's not really, and I mean, it's a stretch for absence of mistake. Would I argue it? Yes. Is it a stretch? Yes. Is the judge wrong in his ruling? No. No, he's not. Did I hope that we would see some of that? Yes. Did I want to hear the third interview? Yes. Did the prosecution confidently state in their opening statement that they would hear all three interviews? Yes, which is why you don't overpromise, because the jury's not going to hear that third interview. But the defense has to be careful in the way that they bring up Cousin Eddie, because the defense could still make this more relevant to the point where the prosecution gets to explain. They've brought up a ton of character, but character evidence is the thing that you run the risk on getting appealed for the most. Letting in too much 404 evidence is like the number one. I don't know if it is. I haven't done studies. It is highly appealable. And it is one of the things that the appellate courts look at and go, that was a bit too much, because you have to keep the balance between more probative than prejudicial. And when you pile on a lot of 404 evidence of other things on top of a case that isn't, super obvious, you run the risk of Alec Murdaugh being convicted of murder because there's so much evidence of him being a bad dude with regard to, stealing from his very vulnerable clients and lying to their face about it. That, you run the risk of that. And you don't want the jury to convict him. My in-ears. You don't want the jury to convict him on that at all. You want them to convict him because they think beyond a reasonable doubt that he's the one that shot Maggie and Paul, not because he stole from clients. He'll have his day to be convicted for those crimes. I mean, unless he takes a stand and admits to them all, which still is within the realm of possibility. So I don't think we're going to see the third interview or the 911 call. Now, if you're Alec Murdaugh's defense team at this point, you're no longer leaking that he's going to testify. This staying out, there's nowhere good him testifying can go if he testifies. So it is far. Yesterday it was far. The judge, I think, was entertained. I don't know if he was ever seriously entertaining it, but the judge let in some with regard to Maggie's sister, saying everything changed in September. And now what the prosecution has is an illusion hanging out there that in September, he got shot in the head on the side of the road. And Maggie's sister thought, oh no, they're being targeted again. And then everything changed. And we found out that that wasn't true. That's what the jury is left with. That's it. So the prosecution needed to be careful in talking to Maggie's sister, because if this didn't come in, what's out there now is that something changed, but the jury doesn't know what. Maybe they'll forget, maybe they won't. Maybe more will happen, maybe it won't. Maybe they'll hear his interview, his third interview in another way, maybe they won't. So, question, jury is familiar with the family and murders. Wouldn't they likely know about the roadside incident? This jury's not familiar with the family, unless they lied. Most of the jurors said they didn't know about this. So, question, could Cousin Eddie come in and rebuttal if it's made relevant by something else? At this point, no, but we've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. So, I want to see the third interview, even if it's not evidence. I want the tea. I want to see it too. And I don't disagree with the judge. I think either way the judge ruled, the judge is within his discretion either way. And I can see both arguments on this. The roadside incident, more than anything else, really, really, really runs the risk of, as the judge said, a bridge too far that's going to land in any conviction being appealed. It's going to be appealed anyway, but more successfully appealed. So I think the judge is being very mindful. At some point, it's just piling on. And that's exactly what the rules of evidence don't allow to happen. So 3 months after the murder, and the defense argued it exactly that way. This is 3 months after the murder. This is 3 months after the murder. This is 3 months after the murder. When is enough enough? Unless he confesses to the murder. And if they have that evidence, they probably should bring it in at some point, because we're almost at the end of the prosecution's case. I put up a poll over on the YouTubes. Let's go see. If you haven't voted on that yet, you might want to go vote on that poll. Let's see how many of you have voted on the poll. We have 14,000 votes on the poll. I lost my poll. Hold on. Come here, poll. Come here, poll. Come here, George. All right, poll. Where are we? The prosecution says they will be done with their case in chief today, Wednesday. Today. 6% of you agreed. 6% of you. 27% of you thought Thursday. It looks like you might be right. 16% of you thought Friday. And 51% of you are where I'm at on this whole thing. Never. We live here now. We live here. We live here now. We live here now. We live here now. We live here now. which is funny. Based on the statements this morning, I think the prosecution will go through the entire day and maybe a witness tomorrow. Here's what I still expect from the prosecution. And then I'm going to answer more questions until whenever they decide to come back for court, which could be now, could be later. We have a timeline expert who should be like the kind of lead investigator of the whole thing to tie all of this together, maybe, hopefully. Please, 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 please tie it all together. And I don't think they're going to bring in their blood spatter expert. They're not bringing in the third interview. They're not bringing in the 911 call from the roadside incident. There isn't much else, because with all of that, they're not going to bring in Cousin Eddie, which is probably, I mean, for us, I'm disappointed for us. I hate this for us. Is it legally the proper thing to do? Yeah, probably. Yep, probably is. Do I hate it for us? Yep. Sure want to know what Cousin Eddie has to say. But that's just me being curious. It doesn't mean it's proper evidence. My curiosity is not the standard, thank God, because I'm so curious as to what Cousin Eddie would have to say. So with that, I don't know what else they have. Chat, do you want me to put the poll in the chat as well? I can put the chat in the poll as well. It's in the community tab, but I can put the poll in the chat. I think we can do 4. So Miguelina, let me just give you the language of it and then the days, but I can put it in the chat. So we could chat, we'll put it in the chat. It's in the community tab, but we'll put it in the chat. Let's see when. I'm sad about the third interview though. I wanted to hear it wrong. I like this judge, and I think he's been very good at trying to maintain that balance. When do you think all right, Miguelina, when do you think the prosecution will rest? And then we did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, never. We live here now. So you guys are talking about the GM stuff. The GM stuff, the prosecution has said it's coming in with their timeline witness. So we'll get that, but it'll be with the timeline witness. Susan said, can there be any last minute surprise witnesses? Not surprise. I mean, GM was kind of a surprise witness. Not surprise. The witness list was 200 witnesses long, and we're at like 55 or something. So there's a lot of witnesses left on the witness list. So, all right. I'm going to go to our questions because you've got questions, I've got questions, and I'm going to try to find my other feed real quick because I'm really bummed. I'm really bummed that we don't seem to have it. There it's back. The feed is back. All right. Good. I don't know where that feed had gone, but it's back now. That's the one I monitor. It's a little easier. All right. Thank you, Miguelina, for putting up the poll. Let us continue on. Let us continue on to questions. I saw a really quick question that I wanted to grab. I think it disappeared. All right, let me keep asking your questions. I'm going to try to grab them as best I can because we've got a little bit of time, and we'll just chat about it. Let's have an early fact around. While we wait for court, here's our quick recap. This morning, they were arguing motions about whether or not more evidence of the roadside shooting incident would be put before the jury. The prosecution indicated that they wanted to bring in a third interview and a 911 call. The defense was like, Your Honor, it's 3 months after the murder. It doesn't go to prove motive. And the prosecution kind of tried to say it proves common scheme or plan, but they didn't really articulate that argument very well at all. And the judge was like, well, it doesn't really go to motive. It goes to common scheme or plan. However, I think it is too far after the murders. He said it might come up with regard to the financial crimes, but not with regard to the murders. Again, circling back that we are not trying all 99 indictments of Alec Murdaugh in this case. They are just trying the 2 murder cases and the 2 use of a weapon in those murders. That's it. All the financial stuff they are trying later. So does this come up as consciousness of guilt? Well, the prosecution didn't argue it that way. They tried to, at the end, say, oh, it's consciousness of guilt. Well, no, the prosecution didn't argue consciousness of guilt. The prosecution argued that this was for an insurance payout. I don't think it necessarily was, but they were arguing that it's for an insurance payout. Well, that's not consciousness of guilt. That's a common scheme or plan for a fraud. So I think the judge is right, given what the arguments were. Am I disappointed for us because we will not get to hear it? Yes. Will we have to wait and hear it in another trial? Yes. If another trial goes to trial, we will be covering it, and it will be painful, but we live here now, so we will do that. All right, questions. Can someone please tell me the reason Blanca and her husband left Moselle? They're selling Moselle. So I think that's probably the most reasonable explanation. How is Murdaugh paying for his defense team? No idea. Question, can Cousin Eddie be called for the drug side? I don't think it helps the prosecution at all to do that. I think that gets a little bit too far into character, and Cousin Eddie is pending a bunch of charges as well. So that would be hard. Question, a teeny explanation of what's all the fuzz about Cousin Eddie. I must have missed it. That's a longer explanation. Cousin Eddie is pending charges for a lot of the shit he's involved in with Alec Murdaugh. The defense says he's Alec's drug dealer. Cousin Eddie received, out of the fees that went missing, the Chris Wilson fees, the $792, Cousin Eddie received $500,000 of it. I wondered if that $500,000 was given to Cousin Eddie to scoot right out of the country. So Cousin Eddie also was the one at the roadside incident who either came up after it happened or shot Alec or was hired to shoot Alec or was struggling to get the gun away from Alec. One of those explanations. Cousin Eddie has said a lot of different things, and it's a mess for the prosecution and the defense. But don't we all want to know? Yes. So then we have to balance. Look, this is the more probative than prejudicial. Would it help the jury decide the question at hand? No. Do we want to know? Yes. Are we going to get to know? Not yet. We will see. We will see. I think the defense keeps bringing up Cousin Eddie's name to insinuate to the jury, look, there's somebody else out here. Cousin Eddie got a bunch of money. Cousin Eddie got a bunch of checks. Cousin Eddie got $500,000. Eddie Smith, Eddie Smith, Eddie Smith, Eddie Smith. And while they can't argue per se, Eddie Smith might be the real killer. They keep leaving this name hanging out there, which is I think, a definite strategy. Is it over for today? Oh, we're just getting started. Do you think we'll hear from anyone from the boat case? Not anyone else. We heard from Tinsley. And the prosecution hasn't really done a good job tying in that everybody else had alibis, because they're going to have to do that in their rebuttal case. Because if the defense tries to be like, it's this, it's that, the prosecution's going to have to come in and say, no, they have alibis. Laura said, so Blanca testified about the insurance card for nothing. Jury's going to be like, so it's interesting testimony. And it would have tied together if this had come in. But yeah, it's a puzzle piece that might be sitting on its own. What do you think about the prosecution with the case? The prosecution has not been clear. They have not rested their case yet, so I'm trying not to be too critical. I've been pretty critical. I'm trying not to be too critical until they rest their case, but they have not been clear. They have not been clear. They have not been clear at all. Not for 1 minute. They have made it very hard for the jury to follow. And I normally remember when we get important details in a case, I am pretty good at remembering them. Without this chat, there is no way I would be able to keep track of this case. The jurors right now can't talk about the case and can't take notes. So I don't know what they remember. They might have remembered that the sister told Maggie to go to Moselle when she didn't want to go that night. And that there was a 300 blackout. and that there's a difference between birdshot and buckshot, and that Bubba is a hard-headed dog. That might be all the jury is remembered at this point. Redwall44, Emily, I watched your TED Talk and it's changed my life. Oh my God, that's such an amazing compliment. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Shiny, sparkly, badass love from Liverpool. You are welcome, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Remember, the jury doesn't have notes. The jury can't rewind, pause, rewatch, be like, what did they just say? They have to rely on the lawyers tying it together. And right now, the prosecution hasn't done that. The prosecution has some puzzle pieces, but we can't see the picture. And the thing I worry about with this prosecution team, not because I'm rooting for a good case that is a clean case, that when the jury comes back with a result, we all go, oh, I see how they got there. As opposed to, oh, what? That's what I'm hoping for. A concise case where we understand how the jury reaches whatever result that they reach. And good lawyering. And some spicy moments. We love a few spicy moments. And yesterday, I think Jim Griffin's "It's Hearsay, Your Honor," and the entire court erupted into laughter was a very delightful, spicy moment outside the presence of the jury. But we're not there yet. The prosecution has puzzle pieces on the board, but they have not tied it together yet. And we are getting real far afield for them to do it. And I worry that the prosecution doesn't have a clear through line on this case. And they have to. And I think they need to start arguing opportunity. He was the only one with an opportunity. Again, that doesn't get in the stuff after the murders. He was the only one with an opportunity to do this. But I think the jury, like a lot of you, are probably still at, well, obviously he's involved. But did he pull the trigger? I just don't know. And I see that in the comments regularly. People are like, I think he's involved, but I don't know if I think the state's proved that he did it beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a very reasonable position to be in. The state hasn't really gone all the way to prove their case yet, I don't think. They've got pieces of it, but they're not there yet. For me, here's what they've got. Opportunity. He is up at the kennels 3 minutes before everybody's phones go silent. So if he is leaving the kennels, arguendo, he's leaving the kennels, why doesn't he hear the shotgun shots? And if he hears the shotgun shots and doesn't go back up to the kennels, why? Because that's fucking weird. Wouldn't you just? I imagine they're not shooting guns near the kennels regularly. The dogs are there. Why would you shoot guns around the kennels when you have 1,700 acres of a property and they shoot guns everywhere else on the property? And we see where they shoot guns on the property regularly because there are just piles of casings around those areas where they regularly shoot. So why wouldn't you go up to the kennels? So opportunity. Then you have the area being hosed down when it seems like it shouldn't be hosed down. Okay. And the hose is wrapped wrong. Okay. The dogs are put back in wrong. Okay. Well, if somebody is taking the opportunity to kill Maggie and Paul because they've been staking out the house and they managed to steal the family guns and they go to kill Maggie and Paul, are they putting away the dogs? Bubba's so hard-headed, all of the Bubba slander. Are they getting Bubba back into his pen? That doesn't, what? Or is the dog running the fuck off away from whoever is there attacking their owners? Or are these dogs attacking the person that attacked their owners if it's a stranger? Don't know. I've got questions. Then the clothes are missing. Never saw them again. The clothes are gone. The gun is gone. Blanca didn't see the clothes again. And it looks like someone showered. And it looks like SLED didn't even notice or came after Blanca cleaned up. But nobody established a timeline, so we can all guess, but we don't know because the prosecution hasn't proved when Blanca came to the house vis-a-vis when SLED was at the house to do a looky-loo around it because they never served a search warrant. Ever. I agree with the defense that SLED did not do an impeccable job. So the clothes are missing. The guns are missing. It looks like there's a 3-minute timeline, but then you've got, if there's a 3-minute timeline from when Alec Murdaugh's at the kennels to when he leaves to go see from when Alec Murdaugh's at the kennels to when the phones go silent, that puts it like right at 8:44, 8:50 p.m. He leaves for his mom's at 9:06. Where did the clothes go? Where did the guns go? Did they stay in his car? The police took the car. They weren't found there. Did he drop it at his mom's house? Well, Shelley didn't say she saw him bring anything in that day. And this is where you're starting to go, is there an accomplice? Or did he hide it somewhere else on the property that they never even looked? But when did he have time to do that and get clean? Because that timing is real fucking short to pull off a crime where he doesn't have a speck of blood on him and he leaves the property and the SLED doesn't find the guns or the shirts or whatever. But who else would have been at the property? No one left evidence that they were at the property. Somebody else isn't up there drinking a Capri Sun after he had asked Blanca to go get them that day. He's up at the kennels, and he's the only other person on the property. But is that enough to convict him of murder? But then he asked Blanca, hey, I wore a different shirt. Remember, I was in a Vineyard Vine shirt. I wasn't in a Columbia shirt. She's like, the fuck you were. The fuck you were. But then that's not just Blanca who he tries to modify the story with. It's Shelley. If anyone asks, I was here 30 to 40 minutes. Weddings are going to be expensive. Hey, you know I know your boss, right? I can help you with that. Let me know. So when we talk about witness tampering, the conversations with Shelley Smith that went by so fast, the prosecution hammered it on so many other things, but not that. Hopefully they'll circle back around to it. But now he's asked 2 people to lie. And the timing is close. And it doesn't seem that there was anyone else up at Murdaugh, or at least anyone that was a stranger. So, where are we? There's a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And then he lies about being at the kennels. So are his lies going to be enough for this jury to be like, there's nobody the fuck else up there? I don't know how he cleaned it up. And I don't know if somebody helped him clean it up, but he pulled the trigger. I don't know at this point. It's a big leap, which is why I think there's going to be some jurors who are like, he did it. He asked them to lie. He lied. He's stealing from clients. Nobody really knows this man. He did it. He did it. And then there's going to be some that are like, I think he's involved, but I don't think he pulled the trigger. Who could do that to their own kid? And that's where I think you end up, or potentially end up, with a hung jury. Because I absolutely think the lying is consciousness of guilt. I wonder if the defense is going to bring in an expert to talk about the fact that he was in shock, or that he is an addict and that his memories are altered and he's not absolutely lying again. Maybe. All right, I need to get back to questions. That's where I'm at right now. Where I'm at is there's a lot of questions that haven't been tied up by the prosecution. And if they don't do that, then this jury cannot come back with a guilty verdict. That's where I'm at today. We'll see. We'll see. Gingy Prob said, FYI, I rewatched some of the old Depp v. Heard stuff. Poot is better than Elaine. Greater than Elaine. Sassy. Poot's a good lawyer. Here's the thing about Poot. Poot annoys the ever-living piss out of me sometimes, but he is not a terrible lawyer. Elaine definitely had her moments as an attorney. Poot's got a shtick that just rubs me the wrong way. It's a very old school. He's the lawyer, and maybe he's not exactly the lawyer, but he's the lawyer who comes up behind the prosecutor and like rubs him on the shoulder. Don't ever. And it's like, you know, back in my day, I was a prosecutor. Can we have a conversation about this case? Hi, Your Honor. Hi to the court staff. Getting a giggle from everybody. He's just that dude. It just rubs me the wrong way. It just rubs me the wrong way. But he's effective. Or he can be effective. We'll see if the jury thinks it's effective. But even today, getting a chuckle from everybody, trying to be the favorite son in the courtroom, fighting like kids. Well, actually, Your Honor, I said let's be back at 10, and the prosecutor said 10:30. He's the one that's making us all late. Mom, he's taking too many snacks again. It's giving annoyed 11-year-old. It's giving annoyed 11-year-old. Mom, he's just like tattling on Creighton. It's crazy. But he just is, right? He just is. There's nothing we can do about it. Poot gonna poot. But he has had some effective moments with witnesses. I think the most effective defense attorney at this point has been Barber. I think Barber's been great. He's had really good cross-examinations. And I'm really interested to see what the defense case brings up, because I think there's a lot of questions now. And then Jim Griffin is so in the fucking mud in this case, it's actually uncomfortable to watch. And he gets up there with Maggie's sister and he's like, I'm uncomfortable too. Then don't be the attorney cross-examining her. There's other attorneys. I don't like the way some of these lawyers have gone after the witnesses. I feel like it's been too heavy-handed. I don't like the style. It doesn't mean he's not a good attorney. And it doesn't mean he might not be successful in raising doubt. You know, Dick comes in with the medical examiner. Oh, I'm going to have this sophomoric approach. And then is just fucking grilling her. And we know it's because he's got another expert that's going to come in about those wounds on Paul, which is going to make all of us real uncomfortable.
If you bring the jury.
Alec paid Cousin Eddie, but I truly don't remember exactly when that payment was. Why didn't the DNA expert say whether the DNA matched Eddie? I don't think any DNA did match Eddie. If they did, the defense would have asked about it. All right, I'm going to switch feeds while we bring the jury. I'm sorry, I meant to answer more questions, and I ended up just giving you all of my thoughts and feelings on this case and the questions that I have, because I still have a lot of questions. A lot of questions. Let us know where you're coming in from and what you're drinking. Mary said, best way to fly, 6 hours, EDB in my ear. Daytona 500, here I come. Cars. Enjoy. How does it take 6 hours to get to Daytona? West Coast, I'm guessing. Morning from Australia. Hello, Jay Bird. Question, does it feel like that video of Alec at the kennel has lost its power? I feel like it's been taken too far. They've played it over and over and over again. It's no longer surprising. It's like, oh, he's there. I'm catching you live for the first time. Melody, welcome.
Jury is present.
Very good. Thank you. Good morning.
Jazz said, what's the... Oh.
All right. Day number 18. State's case.
Still.
I'll call your next witness.
Please, court. State of South Carolina, we call Special Agent David Owen to the stand.
David Owen. I had Dunkin' for breakfast thanks to the stream. You're welcome. We have all been craving donuts. All right. SLED Agent David Owen. Maybe we'll get a demonstrative and a fucking timeline.
Thank you.
From my cousin Vinny today. Apparently, and this is from Mandy Matney, apparently this prosecutor was brought in because he has tried a murder case with Harpootlian before, which explains the sparring between the two of them over statements of a party opponent, which is very interesting. He was brought into this case because he has history with Poot.
My name is David Owen, O-W-E-N.
This should be the timeline.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen about Special Agent David Owen?
Yes.
Your background.
Sorry.
Where you're from and your education and training that led you into law enforcement.
I was talking and making notes.
I was born and raised in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Graduated from Orangeburg High School, graduated from Limestone College with a bachelor's in criminal justice. Began my law enforcement career in Orangeburg in 1996. Moved to Charleston in 1999, where I have been since. And
He's been with SLED since 2015. He did not go to Wade Hampton High School.
no, sir, my entire time in SLED has been with the Low Country region, which encompasses 12 counties. We do general investigations, assisting the 12 counties with whatever they request, anything from public corruption, officer-involved incidents, violent crimes, property crimes.
And when you say assist local counties.
Ever
I know
seen
what
someone
that
just
means.
not
What does
serve
it
a
mean
search
in
warrant
your
before
world?
just because their friends
SLED
were
is an
there?
assisting agency. I like to explain it as if you call 911 for an emergency, you're going to receive local assistance from the police department or the sheriff's
Natalie, it's good
office.
to see you.
SLED's not necessarily going to show up
we're
unless
here
requested
forever.
from the local police chief or the sheriff.
We're here forever.
And is that done regularly, and has it been done regularly in your career where you've been called upon to assist local agencies?
Yes, it is.
And just as an aside, as we've gotten to know each other recently, you've
It's so funny
got some
that
relatives in
today this is
Anderson I knew in high school.
quiet.
Didn't you?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Jesus.
Small world.
Small world.
You got some relatives in Henderson
Let's go
that I
straight to
knew when
June
I
7th.
was growing up.
Special
Okay.
agent. Were you on call June 7th,
Ah,
2021?
I'm
Yes, sir, I
surprised I
was.
need to turn this up
And
today.
how did you get
He just wants to talk about who his family is, who his people are. He wants to talk
specifically,
about
how'd you get the call?
I received a call approximately 10:30 that night. I was in bed trying to go to sleep, and phone rang, and was told that I needed to respond to 4147 Moselle Road in Arlington, Colleton County. That there had been the discovery of 2 deceased persons at that location.
And how long did it take you to
I
get
imagine
to
that's not
4147?
exactly what that call said.
I arrived on scene approximately midnight.
I'm sure it's been said, but it's 4147 Moselle in Colleton County.
Yes, sir,
Said
it
it,
is.
you weren't listening.
Now, when you arrived, tell these ladies and gentlemen what you observed.
When I arrived, there was multiple law enforcement and rescue personnel on scene. Of course, I had to find a place to park out of the roadway. Made my way up to the scene. My normal course of business, or the procedure, being that we were requesting agency, I locate the agency that requested us, this being Colleton County, and speak with the supervisors or detectives on scene and say, hey, what's going on? What have you learned so far? What do you need from us? At that time, one of my supervisors, my captain, Ryan Neal, was on scene, and he was already talking with Colleton, so I was briefed on the situation, what was discovered and what had been done so far.
And did you have a liaison, somebody that you requested or told to work with on the scene that night?
Yes, sir. Originally, as I stated, we were called in to assist. So I was paired up with Detective Laura Rutland with the Colleton County Sheriff's Office, and I was to assist her in any fashion that she needed.
And again, was that unusual for a local agency to call you in to help with the crime scene?
No, sir, it happens very frequently.
And when you got with Ms. Rutland, tell the folks when you were first at the scene, did you make observations in your mind of the scene itself?
Yes, sir. I observed the scene, kind of figure out what's going on, started walking the outside of the scene, trying to understand the lay of the land, figuring out if anybody had been interviewed already, what methods or avenues were being taken to try to figure out what's going on, secure the area.
I really hope this
and-
is all
and
the
whatnot.
timeline. I really
And,
do.
did you see the bodies that were all
With Owen.
Paul and Maggie?
Yes, sir. I was standing outside the crime scene tape, and, when I know now to be Paul Murdaugh and Maggie Murdaugh, I knew that there was a white male and a white female, but they were covered up with a sheet. I was not able to see them, but I saw where they were.
Did you make any other observations of the actual crime scene there itself then?
Other than the placards or evidence placards that Colleton County had put out to protect evidence upon their initial arrival, I didn't go into the scene. Our crime scene unit had not arrived yet.
Oh, there's a little bit of a goatee,
I have a history,
y'all.
I have a
hear
background
you
in
talking
crime
about
scene,
no
so
beard-
I knew
no
not to
beard,
go
just
in
a
and
little bit.
disturb anything until it was documented properly. I was aware that Colleton County had already documented or located and marked some evidence for protection purposes. So I just walked around the crime scene tape. I knew that there were dog kennels on the left. There was a big shed on the right with a large field behind it with another shed. And there were several people and several cars back behind, what I call back behind the crime scene from where I was standing.
And at this point, had you seen the defendant, Alex Murdaugh?
I was told that he was with the group of people behind, which was told to me to be some family members and some of his law partners.
And I guess you became, at this point, were you the chief investigating officer?
I don't recall how long, within maybe
There-
30 minutes or
Emily,
so.
this is fair. There might be-
My supervisors pulled me aside
The
and
August
said,
11th
hey,
interview, not the roadside
we're
interview.
actually going to be
That's
the
fair.
lead on this. So
forgot about that one.
Detective Rutland and my roles kind of reversed, and I became the lead investigator, and she was my assistant.
But y'all still working together?
We were still working together, yes.
Had you ever worked with her before?
No, sir. I knew her, but I had never worked with her before.
Did you think it was important to talk to Alex Murdaugh?
I did.
And can you tell the jury specifically how that came about?
Well, I was told that he arrived on scene and discovered his wife and son, and that he had made the 911 call. Being that it was his wife and son, and he found the bodies and made the 911 call, it was paramount that I talk to him. You know, what was his observations, what's going on in his life, what's going on in Maggie and Paul's life, to try to figure out what happened. I still didn't know if it was, let me back up just a minute.
I don't know if there's not
Going
money somewhere
into
paying
a death
fees.
scene investigation, homicide investigators are taught to treat every scene as a homicide until determined otherwise. And that encompasses suicide, natural, accidental, or homicide, or unexplained.
Start with homicide.
So automatically, I was treating it as a homicide, and I didn't know if it was or not. So it was paramount that I speak with
hear
Alec
y'all say
Murdaugh
I'm
to try to
quiet
determine
today. I don't know
what he
why.
saw, what he experienced, what's going on in their lives, to kind of help guide my investigation as it progressed.
And had the weather started to change about that time?
It had been changing and continued to change. It was raining intermittently as I was coming into Walterboro from Charleston. It would stop raining, it would mist rain, it would heavy rain. So, you know, the weather was also a concern that night, especially being an outside scene.
And that leads into my next question. Where did you
I'm trying to
request and where did you take the first statement from Alex Murdaugh?
When I met Alec Murdaugh,
working at the break too.
there was really nowhere else to interview him except the privacy of my patrol car, which was a Dodge Durango.
We all seen the video, and I'm not going to play it again. The jury will have that. But
Thank God.
can you tell us where is your car?
Yes, sir.
So we've seen the video. Where was the camera?
It was a body camera. It's not a fixed in-car camera like in most active patrol cars, but I clipped it to my visor right above me and just angled it towards Mr. Murdaugh.
And is that your practice to video when you're
Walking a crime scene.
potential suspects, or did you video?
I video
When you
any
can.
I video any witness or audio record any witness that I am able to do.
So you're in your driver's seat.
Yes, sir.
Where was the defendant, Mr. Murdaugh?
Mr. Murdaugh was sitting to my right in the front passenger seat.
And
I
behind
hear you.
him?
I'm trying
Behind
to.
him was Detective Rutland.
Okay, and to her left, if you will.
To her left and behind me was Danny Henderson. At that time, I knew he was an attorney, but I didn't realize his involvement other than an attorney. Later on, I found out that he was a partner and Alec Murdaugh's personal attorney.
And how did he get in the car?
Who got in the car?
I say, how did,
Mr. Murdaugh?
no, Danny get in the car?
Through the door.
I mean, it's common if there's an attorney present that wants to be involved in the interview or sit on the interview, I allow him to sit on the interview. It's not an issue for
You
me.
said it was fine?
It was fine.
Okay. And I want to ask specifically about your observations of the defendant as far as his mind. Did he appear to be under the influence of anything, any intoxicant or anything else when you were talking to him?
I did not notice any intoxicants, whether it be drugs or alcohol. He didn't smell of alcohol. His eyes weren't, any dilated. They weren't bloodshot. He seemed of full body and mind, other than being distraught that he had discovered his wife and son dead.
Did you have trouble understanding his words?
No, sir, I did not.
Did he appear to have trouble understanding your words?
No, sir, he did not.
Were his answers to your questions subject matter appropriate?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And were they timely?
Yes.
Kelly in the chat asking the real questions. Did he smell of Tic Tacs? We have questions.
And again, without going into the details.
Oh,
did he tell
Jane,
you,
a police interrogation in a car is
roughly what happened earlier in the evening, how long
normal
he'd been at
given
the
how
house, when he
far
left,
out
and when he came back?
they
Yes,
were
sir. We went over his evening.
in the country. That's not strange.
And after this statement, well, before that, did you, when you were out, before you got in the car,
do a
did
lot
you?
of interviews in
You
cars.
gave her just to look at him?
Yes, sir.
Did you shake his hand?
I did shake his hand.
And did you come up to him and y'all shook hands like that?
Yes, sir. I introduced myself.
What did he say when you introduced yourself?
How you doing? I don't remember exact words, but how you doing? I know you need to talk to me, that type language.
And could you see anything just from your naked eye? I know you didn't have a microscope, but could you see anything that appeared to be, how did his clothes look?
Even if it
He had
wasn't
on a white
raining,
T-shirt.
I think they would have been in the car
I
just
didn't
to
notice
report it
anything out of the ordinary on his T-shirt.
at a controlled environment.
He had on green cargo khaki type shorts, and then I think bright in color. I think later I learned they're orange or pink tennis shoes. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary about his appearance.
Alec is still in custody.
After you took this statement, you and Ms. Rutland, did you want to take his clothes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you take his clothes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell the jury how that went about.
Well, it was coming close to the end of the interview, and I was going to discuss collecting his clothes from him, but he had received a call that his oldest son was arriving at the home. Knowing that he needed to go be with his son, I said, I'll catch up with you later, go ahead. Shortly thereafter, maybe 10, 15 minutes, I went up to the house and told him I needed to get his clothes. I was allowed into the house. There were multiple people inside the house. When you walk in the house, there's a foyer. I walked into the foyer. Immediately to the left, there's some stairs going upstairs. To the right, I believe it was a dining room, and you walk into the living area, or living room. Met Mr. Murdaugh again, told him I needed to collect his clothing. He went to what I now know is the master bedroom towards the left of the house, left of the living room, and he said, sure, and immediately began to disrobe his clothes and hand them to me.
All right, so,
Did you watch him?
Did you go to the bedroom?
Yes, sir. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom.
So if that's his bedroom, you stood right here?
Yes, sir.
And could you see him changing?
Yes, I did.
And, but, did you give him a little privacy?
I did.
And, so did he give you the same clothes that he had on?
Yes, sir.
You're sure about that?
He still had on the
You sure about
oranges,
that?
pink tennis shoes, green shorts, and white T-shirt.
And this is what's been entered as 419.
Yep, watching them change, which means that when Alec pulled a shirt down and a shirt fell, it could have been the clothes he put on after he handed his clothes over to SLED. I'm going to turn the court feed down just a little bit because we're getting all of the unboxing sounds with the gloves. Oh, this attorney does all the touchy things. It's wild.
Those are the tennis shoes that you saw the defendant Alex Murdaugh in and that
Yes, sir.
he
This-
took off and gave to you.
Under this light, it's more red, but, I considered it orangish pink that night, but these are the shoes that I collected from him.
Do you remember the condition? How did they feel when you touched them?
They were a little damp. It was raining that night.
You said damp?
Damp, yes. It was raining that night, summertime, high humidity, so there was a lot of condensation and water on the ground. And this is the bag that I would have put them in. My initials are not on them, but my handwriting says shoes 0140. So that would, it was 0140140, which would have been the time that I collected the shoes.
Is that 1:40 a.m.
Yes, sir.
on June 8th of
Yes, sir.
2021?
Yes, sir.
All right, 1:40
Did you
a.m.
make any other observations? There appear to be any other stains to your naked eye on those shoes when you saw them at 1:40 a.m. on June 8th of 2021?
No, sir, I did not make any other observations.
I'm trying not to kill everybody's ears
You'd
with
leave your
the
gloves on.
sound.
Yes, sir.
Was any of that dirt in this box important to you? Because counsel threw it out.
I'll show you
in
what's
the
been
trash.
entered as 418 and tell me if you recognize this.
Oh, we're gonna do a lot of this.
Testimony.
We're going to do a lot of this.
This is a bag that's sealed up, but I know that it's a T-shirt. It's got my writing on it with the time of 0141 or 1:41 a.m. Again, my initials and date are not on it, but I do recognize my signature or my writing.
You said 1:41 a.m. on that?
Yes, sir.
Did you
Counsel,
package those clothes separately?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Why?
Again, with
cross-contaminated?
my experience in law enforcement, my experience in crime scene, anytime you collect a piece of evidence, you keep it separate so you don't cross-contaminate.
And that was the shirt?
Yes, sir.
And what is also contained in 418 that's been entered? Can you tell me what that is?
it's a lot of crinkling.
These are the shorts, 0141 in my handwriting. Again, my initials and date are not on it, but I do recognize my handwriting.
Could you open those, please?
Yes, sir.
The clothes weren't collected till after the interview and the crime scene stuff, so it was just they were doing the crime scene stuff. That's why. So they interviewed him first. It's the worst unboxings ever. There's no consistency. I hear you. I know, I'm hearing, y'all, I hear that I'm super quiet. I can't reset the audio without heating the entire stream, so it's just gonna have to wait till this afternoon. I will try my best. But I am sorry for all of your ear holes. I do like the purple gloves. I like them a lot. Oh no, this attorney likes to have a personal conversation. So for all of you that are like, why is this attorney hovering? I don't know. He stands in the doorway in like the weird corner over the shoulder of the witnesses. It's just bananas. Walk back and forth, my guy. Go back to the podium. I think he just wants to see what's going to happen.
Now, those the pants that you saw defendant Alex Murdaugh wearing on June 7th, June 8th
Yes, sir.
of
I mean, they didn't have
2021?
holes in
Yes,
them.
sir.
And those are the same pants that you took off of
Yes, sir.
Alex Murdaugh, is that correct?
Lauren, this is a great point that Maggie slept at Moselle the night before the murders when she clearly did not. I'll need to go back and look. This is the thing, that they need to tie it together.
Now, describe when you saw these pants on June 7th,
Monkey
June 8th,
thank you.
early AM morning, Special Agent David Owen. How did they look to you?
Green shorts. I didn't notice any stains on them. Nothing was very apparent to the naked eye. They appeared just to be normal, clean shorts.
And we've got these cuttings in the front, just, I mean, I know this, those weren't there, were they?
No, sir. They were complete shorts. Those cuttings were done during processing, evidence processing.
This attorney does not believe in gloves.
I'm gonna go back. I just forgot. That first interview,
Yes, sir.
at some point,
Sarah, I'll
maybe
get to
toward the
that question.
end,
Oh my God, counsel. Oh my God.
I can't remember, I think this was me. You kind of reach over and just do like this to Alex Murdaugh. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I told him. He was upset.
And that's just, you did that, because that's you?
That's just who I am.
And when you got to the house and after you had collected these clothes, did you do
Yeah,
anything else at the
after he's
house?
had his hands on the shorts.
I didn't do anything at the house. I mean, like I stated, there were other people in the house, law partners, family members. people moving about. I did look around to make general observations. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Nothing seemed torn up or out of place. It's the first time I'd ever been in there, but it didn't look like there was a fight or a scuffle or, going in, being observant. I didn't notice. I went in through the front door, was the only door I accessed the house from. I didn't notice any forced entry or, when the door was open for me, it was opened as a normal door should. Met Mr. Murdaugh and collected the clothing. I don't know if I spoke with Mr. Murdaugh or someone else inside the house. I think it was Mr. Murdaugh. Excuse me. He had indicated early on in in the initial interview that he had attempted to contact some of Paul's friends, and one of those friends was Nolan Tootin, and he had indicated that Nolan was at the house during that interview. So when I went to the house to collect the clothing, I asked if Nolan was present. He said yes, he was, and pointed to him. I noticed that he was sitting on a couch in the living room. So I introduced myself to Nolan and conducted an interview with Nolan, again in my vehicle for privacy.
So you had located Nolan Tootin in the residence and then conducted an interview with him in your car?
Yes, sir.
And how many people were in the house? We're into the early morning of June 8th of 2021, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how many people were
Judge Abby
inside
says hello,
approximately?
Leonard.
I didn't go in every room. I didn't see every single person, but
Yeah, of course you
8,
didn't.
10 people from first glance.
Nobody went in every room, it seems.
And had someone at SLED, you mentioned there was crime tape, did someone from SLED arrive at the crime scene where the two bodies were, and were they processing that?
Yes, sir, they were.
And did SLED and/or the locals have that secure?
Yes, sir. There were several investigators from Colleton County. 2 other investigators from my office, Agent Altman and Agent Wiggins were there. My Lieutenant Charles Gint arrived on scene, as well as my captain was already there when I arrived. So there were several officers, several investigators down at that scene.
And was that scene secured and guarded until all the potential evidence at that crime scene was collected, as far as you know?
As far as I know, yes, sir.
We are on direct examination. Unless that was a rhetorical question, because he asks leading questions, and then fair point.
Now,
We're
there was
going to be
also
a
a vehicle down there. Did you
long
determine
direct
where the
of
defendant's,
everything.
if he personally had a vehicle that he'd been in that night?
Yes, sir. There was a dark in color Chevrolet Suburban down there.
What, if anything, was done with that vehicle that night?
Well, early the next morning on Tuesday, June 8th,
See, 'cause we've got
once
the
we
what if
completed the
anything.
scene
We've got the
around the
what if
kennel area
anything.
and sheds, that vehicle was secured
You're like,
and
what if anything will
towed to the
fix it?
Colleton County Sheriff's Office so that it may be later processed.
So it was taken into law enforcement custody?
Yes, sir.
There's been pictures and testimony about the phone that was on Paul.
Yes, sir. So once I left the house, our crime scene units, what they go into a scene and they look for evidence, document evidence, and collect evidence before anybody really goes in to manipulate the scene from there, or alter the scene. So once a majority of the evidence, or all the evidence, not all the evidence, a majority of the evidence on approach to the victims were documented and collected, we went in and started investigating the bodies. The coroner was, of course, with us. And once we took the sheet off of Paul, there was a cell phone that was placed on his rear end and on his right side.
And if you'll think back to your first interview, you'd already had your first interview.
Yes, sir.
How did the defendant tell you that phone had got on his backside?
Mr. Murdaugh stated that, he tried to check Paul for a pulse, and he, tried to turn him over, but thought better of it. And when he did, Paul's phone popped out of his pocket. And Mr. Murdaugh had picked the phone up and stated that he thought of, not the exact words, but this is what he said, was he thought of doing something with it, thought better of it, and put it back down.
Popped out of his pocket.
Yes, sir.
And,
Okay,
what
we've
did
heard
you do
all
with
of
that
this
phone?
testimony.
Once it was
Counsel,
photographed and documented
They
that
need
it was
to go
on
through it, but they don't need to
Paul's rear end,
rehash it too much.
I collected the
This
phone.
is the timeline.
Our crime scene unit doesn't normally collect electronic devices. They don't process the electronic devices. It's normally the case agent or one of the agents on scene will collect that phone. So I collected the phone. When we collect electronic devices, we normally put them in airplane mode, disconnect any power sources, take out SIM cards. Once I collected Paul's phone, I attempted to put it in airplane mode, and of course you have to try to activate it. I noticed that it had a dead battery and would not power on at all. So I secured it as evidence in my vehicle.
You attempted to put it in airplane mode, why?
So that any outside sources, if someone has your access to your phone, like your iCloud account or your Google account, if you have an Android phone, you could remote access and wipe the phone, or anybody could, or some of the newer phones you can use a location service, even though the phone is off, to find where that phone
Like on my
is.
iPhone.
So we put it in airplane mode and pulled the SIM card out. But like I said, with the battery being dead, I couldn't put it in airplane mode.
Did Paul's phone become, or was it a significant piece of evidence in this case?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. Those are facts.
How long did you stay there once you got there? At the 4140 Moselle?
I believe I left about 8:30, 9 o'clock the next morning.
So you stayed all night?
Yes, sir.
And did the crime scene unit down
hours, 8,
where
9
Paul
hours.
and Maggie were stay all night?
Yes,
10
sir.
hours.
So night becomes day, obviously?
Yes, sir.
Did you see anybody else at the scene that morning that you had an occasion to conduct an interview with?
Approximately 7 a.m. Y'all have heard about C.B. Rowe, the farmhand, the employee of Mr. Murdaugh. He's the farmhand. He arrived on scene. We confronted him and said, "Hey, we need to speak with you." So earlier in the interview with Mr. Murdaugh, he said that C.B. had, or I
we
call him CB,
remember.
Mr. Rowe had not worked on Monday, that he had taken his father, and he relayed a story about Mr. Rowe having a conversation with Paul,
With
where
Navy
he
SEALs
was
and radical
hired
Black
by
Panthers.
FBI out of high school to be some killer operative. So of course that kind of piqued my interest, and
'Cause
I
it
needed to
was
figure
weird
out where
as
he was
fuck.
on yesterday or even that night. So Mr. Rowe, when he showed up, immediately went into an interview with him, got his alibi, got his statement of his events on Monday, where he corroborated that he had to take his father to the hospital or to the doctor in Mount Pleasant on that Monday, and that he was not there on Moselle property.
And let me go back just a minute. At some point, the bodies of Maggie and Paul were taken away from the scene, right?
Yes, sir,
Counsel,
the coroner
we
took
can't get a
custody of the bodies.
timeline if you
That's the
keep
law.
jumping
Coroner
around
comes in
like
and
House of
takes
Pain.
custody, right?
Yes, sir.
Stop it.
But prior to leaving, were you able to observe from your own eyes around the bodies of Paul and Maggie?
Yes, sir.
And how would you describe those?
Very gruesome, very bloody,
Bloody?
very bloody.
Around the bodies bloody.
Yes, sir. And also around Paul, it was more bloody because he was on concrete and a rock driveway. And it had been raining that night, so you had the water to
Thank you, Chad.
the bodily fluids.
being with me
It's
with my
going to make them run a
references.
little bit more or spread more. Maggie was on dirt, grass, so it's going to seep into the ground. So there wasn't as much blood around her as was under her.
And did you, and without going into what he said, I think he's testified, did you interview Rogan Gibson?
I did not interview Rogan
Was
Gibson.
he interviewed?
He was
that
interviewed.
morning?
He was interviewed on June 8th, yes.
Interviewed what?
He was interviewed on June 8th, yes.
So y'all are investigating,
Yes, sir.
working with the locals,
Yes, sir.
interviewing people.
Yes, sir.
Did you try to determine, or did you request anybody to check the videos in the area?
Yes, sir. Back up after interviewing Mr. Rowe,
He's trying to
Bill
keep a
Davis, who
timeline.
was the dog, took care of the dogs, also arrived, and we interviewed him.
We love him.
Tried to get some information. Once we finished those interviews, our crime scene was done. We responded back to our low country office here in Walterboro. Collin County Sheriff's Office was there, 14th Circuit solicitors and their investigators were present, as well as most of our office and other agents that we
Everybody.
called in, so we can relay to them what we had learned so far and what needed to be done. So we started assigning tasks to other agents in Collin County Sheriff's Office to go back out and start canvassing the neighborhood. Normally you would canvass the neighborhood when you're out there at night, and some agents were, but 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, most people are sleeping. It's out also the country, it's dark, you don't really get the lay of the land. So you go back the next day when it's daylight. So we sent Colony County out, and they went from one end of Moselle Road to the other, attempting to locate video
Investigators were
surveillance,
canvassing in
talk to
the blizzard
neighbors,
of the
see if they heard
century
anything,
at
saw
all
anything.
hours.
Having any problems with
Just saying.
burglaries, robberies in the area, anything to develop a lead that we could track down.
You were searching for any potential killers.
Yes, sir.
Did the search of the videos in the surrounding areas produce
Heather, the
anything?
Low Country is
No,
this
sir.
area of South
Not many homes
Carolina.
are close to the road out there, and the ones
Where
that
this
did, not
happened.
all of them had video or video surveillance. The ones that did, that we saw were at night, and you couldn't see, you can tell a car's passing, but you couldn't tell the make and model. You couldn't see the tag number, so it was really useless.
But y'all tried.
We tried, yes, sir.
And I think you said after David, and he testified yesterday, when you talked to Rogan Gibson, is that when you first learned about a conversation where he may have heard some voices?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that morning you heard that from him?
But Agent Croft and Agent McAllister interviewed Rogan Gibson. I believe it was
Emery asked,
sometime
will they use charts? I
mid-morning or
don't know.
lunchtime.
This is the start.
And me being the lead agent, everything that they
I don't
learned, they
know.
report back. So I learned later on that afternoon that they had interviewed Mr. Gibson, and that Rogan had relayed a conversation that he had had with Paul on the phone about an injured dog, and that Rogan had requested a video, and that during the phone call, what Rogan had heard in the background.
Paul, Maggie, and 99% sure Alex?
Yes, sir.
And some point on June 8th of 2021 was the big house, or the main house, if you will, searched by
The big
law
house is
enforcement.
appropriate.
Yes, sir. Agent Croft and Agent McAllister, upon their completion with Rogan Gibson, they went back to the house, spoke with those that were present. I believe they spoke with Attorney Lee Cope, which is a law partner of Alec Murdaugh's, as well as Alec's brother, John Marvin. They told them while they were there they wanted to search the house for evidence, and they were given consent, and that search commenced.
Did we get Alex's phone that night?
No, sir.
Now, June 8th becomes June 9th. You're investigating, correct?
Yes, sir.
Working with the locals.
Yes, sir.
Everybody's getting leads to follow.
Yes, sir.
Did you have an occasion to speak with Alex Murdaugh again?
Yes, sir. On June 9th, I contacted John Marvin Murdaugh, Alex's brother, and stated that we needed to sit down and have a more proper interview.
What do you mean by that more proper?
This is witness
During-
57 for the state.
Right after a tragic
you're
event,
curious.
you want to get as much information as possible. But you can imagine that speaking with somebody who's experienced a tragic event, they're not going to remember everything. Later on, once they have time, kind of memory reset, they're going to have more was Alec Murdaugh again in the front seat. Agent Jeff Croft was sitting behind Alec. And
Angelina, I'm
Alec's
back.
attorney, Jim Griffin, who was at the defense table, was
Y'all, my
also
internet went out.
in the vehicle too.
I don't know.
And
I'm back.
I think this was
Sorry,
a
y'all.
voluntary statement by the defendant.
Our internet went down.
Yes, sir,
I
it
don't know
was.
if it'll happen.
No question that it was voluntary.
Again, but-
He wanted to give it, and you wanted to ask
Our
him
internet
questions.
went out.
Yes, sir.
And I have to, because it just comes out. Could you understand him?
Yes, sir.
Did he appear to be under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or other intoxicant?
No, he did not.
Did he have trouble understanding David Owen when he was asking him questions, in your mind?
In my mind, he wasn't. Again, if I wasn't clear, I think he said,
Sorry, y'all.
excuse me, or say that again if he didn't hear what I said. And of course, I repeated myself, but it wasn't that he didn't understand me. It was more so that he didn't hear me.
They're talking about the second interview.
Could you understand his words, and were they appropriate to your answer, to your
Yes.
questions?
Yes, they were.
And there's a colloquy between all of y'all and Mr. Griffin at several points on the interview, right?
Yes.
Did he appear to be clear in his mind, is what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And this was how many days? Well, first of all, when you talked to him that first statement, how long was it after the 911 call?
I interviewed him just before 1 a.m. on June 8th, and the 911 call came in on that Monday night at approximately 10:06 p.m.
So that's just a few hours afterwards.
Yes, sir.
Would you say it was fresh in his mind then?
Yes, sir, I would.
And this second interview was on what day and time?
June 10th.
And what time was the second?
1:30-ish. Hang on just a minute, sir. It began approximately 1:45 p.m. I'm sorry, 1:54 p.m.
First and the second interview, Special Agent David Owen, based on your being there and listening and asking questions, was the defendant clear about whether or not he had gone back down to the kennels after he went to the house?
No, sir.
Was he clear that he had not gone
Chat,
back
did we
down?
miss anything?
Yes, sir.
Well, that was clear. He hadn't gone down there.
That was clear.
Can't leave the witness.
Okay.
Did
Didn't go to the kennels.
trouble understanding that?
No,
Got
sir, I
it.
did not.
And was he clear where he'd gone after that,
Yes, sir.
based on your questions?
He went to visit his mother in Alameda.
And when he came back?
When he came back, yes, sir.
I wouldn't be surprised, Melanie. The weather is giving.
And that's
is
the
giving
12th.
Weather.
That was
Second
June-
interview?
June 10th.
10th, I'm sorry,
Yes, sir.
I was skipping it. Did you collect the defendant's phone that day?
I asked for consent to do a cell phone extraction. Dylan Hightower with the 14th Circuit actually conducted that extraction.
I wanna know
And he conducted a logical
If he
extraction
heard
while
Alex say,
Mr.
"I
Murdaugh
did him
was
so
being
bad
interviewed.
in this interview." I wanna know what he heard.
What's logical extraction?
We might
mean?
not get that till cross-examination.
So there's two types of, I'm not a cell phone expert, but what I understand is logical extract, there's two types, logical and physical. Logical, it's basically the surface of your phone. You get phone calls, text messages, emails, photographs, very basic information. The physical extraction, you get more files on the phone, such as orientation change, your steps, more intricate, more information with the physical extraction.
So on the 10th, working with the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office investigator, y'all got
It
a
is.
logical
It's been 100
extraction.
years long,
Yes,
and
sir.
my heart stopped.
And was the
Stopped.
phone given
Absolutely
back to
stopped
him?
when our
Yes, sir.
internet went out.
Upon the completion of the extraction, it was given back, yes.
But that's all right.
But you're working with the local officials at this point, correct?
Yes, sir.
After that, did you have an occasion to talk with Marion Proctor and her family without saying what they said?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure the exact date, but it was sometime that week or the following week that I spoke with Marion Proctor and her husband.
And was Maggie Murdaugh's Mercedes processed?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did y'all obtain search warrants?
Yes, sir, we did.
Would you dispute if I told you that was June 15th for social media, financial records, and to search the ponds of Moselle and surrounding areas?
No, sir.
And did y'all do that?
Yes, sir, we did.
You actually went out and searched?
Yes, sir.
How'd you search the ponds?
We had SLED dive team come down. once
Rob,
they
it was,
arrived and kind of
internet.
surveyed the pond, it wasn't
Internet outage.
deep
I
enough
think
for
it's
them to actually
weather-related.
dive, so they
Dr.
just
B is going
waited.
to be calling our
They
internet
had,
provider
hip
to
waders on, so they were
double-check.
walking around basically on their hands and knees, searching
was
the pond.
brief, thankfully.
There were some other waterways and ponds on the property that were searched, and I believe they went back the next day to complete searches. Also around that area, because going into Hampton, it's a swampy area. There's Salkatchie River, the Little Salkatchie River, those areas were searched. Also that same day that the ponds were searched, we did a land search in conjunction with Colleton County. They had ATVs, UTVs.
My mother is
4x4s,
texting me about the
and, you know,
weather.
we were searching the property, looking for any evidence
Mom,
that
it's fine.
might help us develop leads or point us in the right direction in the investigation.
So SLED's working,
Yes, sir.
working with locals.
Yes, sir.
And was the property searched again on June 16th?
Yes, sir.
And where was that?
That's when the dive team returned and completed their search of the waterways and ponds.
And it's also, there was some blackout cartridge casings and some shotgun shells that were seized later, correct, also?
Yes, sir. The pond that was, the first pond that was searched is by the shooting range or the shoot house across Moselle from the main house. So going back to June 8th, when Agent Croft went back out to the house and they conducted the search, he located some additional 300 blackout shell casings. We knew there was a shoot house by the ponds, so we went over there and located the 300 blackout shell casings inside the shoot house, as well as some shot shells from shotguns by the pond, and those were collected.
For those of you in the chat talking about Nashville severe weather, Nash severe weather on Twitter, I love them too, and I follow them.
Did you end up talking with the
I follow them
Yes, sir.
with great
Did
attention,
you,
rapt attention.
have an occasion to speak with where Maggie Murdaugh might have been on June 7th? Was any place she might have visited?
Yes, sir. According to the statement that Alec gave me, that she was seeing that she had been to Charleston to see a doctor, and he gave me a name. I
Did
did
you go
some
check?
research, and being from Charleston, I was familiar with the doctor and the location. So I went by and spoke with the doctor, and
He confirmed
they
it?
said they verified that she was there that day. She told me they told me what she was wearing, which is the clothing she was found in that night. She didn't appear to be in any distress. It appeared to be a normal visit. I didn't get into what the visit was, but it was a
Finally
normal
getting
visit
the
for them.
overview of what happened that day is nice.
And-
it's just so far down
Days
the
are
road.
becoming a week and you're moving on. Did you talk with the defendant, Alex Murdaugh, again during this time period?
A few times, yes, sir.
A few times.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, do you remember on July 28th, meeting him at the Colleton County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir. I believe it was a few days prior to the 28th. He had contacted me. We still had custody of his Suburban, and he was seeking to have his Suburban returned to him. I indicated to him that it was inoperable. I was unable to return it to him.
They took all the shit out of it.
And he asked to get some personal belongings out of there. I believe he had some clothing and some golf clubs in there. And
Clothing,
he was
you
going on
say?
vacation with Maggie's family and needed his golf clubs.
So he called about his car?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that was the point of his phone call?
He asked about the investigation as well. He asked about the investigation later on the 28th when I did meet with him, and to, let him get some of the clothing and some of his belongings out of the Suburban. He indicated to me that he had some questions and wanted to know about the investigation, and at that time I indicated, I said, well, I have some additional questions as well. I said, I think I had another interview
all got
scheduled.
questions. Let's
I said, I
talk.
can't meet with you right now. Can we meet sometime tomorrow? And he stated no, that he was going out of town. And I said, well, go with your family, take a relaxing vacation. When you return, give me a call, let's schedule something, and we'll sit down. A few days later, I believe it was August 3rd or August 4th, he returned my phone call and said, I'm back, let's schedule something. And we scheduled a date for August the 11th.
So he called, asked about the case, the car. You said you couldn't meet, I could meet with you tomorrow, and he said he couldn't, he's going on vacation.
Yes, sir.
When he gets back, y'all agree on a date for another interview?
Yes, sir.
And specifically, what had you told him about that interview, or what did he ask you about that interview prior to this, prior to actually the interview?
About setting up the interview?
Yes, sir.
He just stated he had some questions. He wanted to know what we were doing, where we were at, if we had any information. And I told him that we didn't have a whole lot. and I had some questions that I needed clarification on.
I do too. I have
that I needed to
questions.
sit down with them.
Questions?
And prior to this.
Me, it's me. I have
That y'all
questions.
collected a bunch of buckle swarms?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why?
Well, when our crime scene agents, when they processed the scene,
Yes, they were so
looked for
suspicious of Alec
touch
Murdaugh that
DNA.
they
Of course,
said,
you
"Here are
couldn't
your
see
golf
it, so
clubs.
you're
Have a
just
nice
thinking,
trip.
okay, where
Bye-bye."
could somebody have touched? I know they swabbed door handles and they swabbed different areas. Evidently, there was the shell casings and the shot shells. There were no weapons found that night by the bodies, so we didn't have those to test, other than the shotgun that Alec had taken, gone and gotten from the house during the 911 call. And at that time, you know, I wasn't familiar with the Murdaugh family. I didn't know the Murdaugh family, but I knew that there was a large boat case. There was an issue where Paul had been charged or indicted on the boat accident and the death of Mallory Beach. So, you know, that's a catastrophic event for that family. So, you know, you immediately think, okay, well, that's something big, so that needs to be addressed as well. And
I'm glad they're tying
now I
up
have
who we talked to in the
friends and
boat
family
case.
over at my house all the time, so their DNA is going to be there. I knew that Alec had friends and family at his house all the time, especially law partners. I saw them there. So if I'm going to start collecting DNA, I need to eliminate the ones that I know were there. So you start going out to friends and family.
Then you just swab everybody.
Talking to people in the boat case that were on the boat that night, trying to document their alibis and getting their DNA to make sure, if we find an unknown, is it them?
So you were trying to either rule in or rule out any other possible suspects?
Yes.
And who brought up the boat case first in this case?
Oh, we know now.
When you got involved? When's the first time you heard about it?
During the 911 call. Alec mentioned it in the 911 call. He mentioned it
Immediately.
to Sergeant Green when he arrived. He mentioned it to me during the interview.
And so you followed up on that?
Yes, I did.
And then
Or
what?
yes, we did.
We did.
Good. Stay at the podium, counsel. It's so much easier. We get our hopes up in this case that the prosecution's going to be like, hey, here's the timeline so you can all understand. So at least we know what questions we have if it's all put together.
I missed all, I watched it, but some
And then we get
testimony with
disappointed.
pathologist about possible scenarios.
Don't tease us
What
today.
guns were found
I'm tired and
at or
hungry.
near Maggie and Paul when y'all got there?
None.
None?
None. Other than the shotgun that was by Alex's truck that he retrieved from the house, but
What
there were no
weapons were
guns
near
found
Maggie or Paul?
by Maggie or Paul.
And that gun was given to you by Alex? Given to law
It
enforcement?
That
was
goes
given to
to
law enforcement by
defense's
Alec,
theory.
yes, sir.
They didn't think it was a self-harm situation because there were no
Okay,
weapons
let's,
found near the bodies.
Did you have an occasion to talk with the defendant again?
On August the 11th?
Okay.
Should have talked about that when we were talking about crime
Tell
scene.
these folks where that took place.
At the SLED Slow Country Regional Office here in Walterboro.
How far is that from where we're standing or sitting right now?
2-3 minute drive.
And-
If you're from Walterboro any length of time, it's the old hospital, the old mental health DSS building.
They got y'all in the old hospital in the mental health building?
Yes, sir.
What time
To
was
be
it?
fair, this is how I talk about my hometown too. It's like, oh, it's where the old 7-Eleven used to be. I don't remember the name of the new thing, but it's where the old 7-Eleven used to be. That, I get it. I absolutely get it.
Interview began approximately 11:09 a.m.
And
I hope we'll see this interview.
describe the room, interview room itself.
Oh, I did that wrong. So
I mean,
this is the
it's
August
plain
11th
walls, there's a
interview.
table, a small conference table, basically about the size of this desk, and 4 chairs. Of course, we move the chairs in and out to accommodate the number of people. There's video cameras up on the ceiling to record
How many
any interview
lawyers?
that occurs in there.
Are the video cameras visible?
Yes, sir.
Y'all, the feed's going to be a little bit behind because my internet went out. I can actually try to put them in like 1.25 and help us catch up a little. I think that's fair. It's not like anybody's talking fast or thinking fast or moving fast. Everybody's taking their damn time. I'm trying to figure out if I need to Uber Eats different donuts this morning. That's where my brain has gone to. I think counsel's taking enough of his time. All right, we'll play catch up. Fair, chat. Hey, chat, I'm here for you to do this together. We are a team.
I'll show you what Smart states 5'11", 5'12", and 5'13". And just ask you, does that relate to what you're saying right now? Testifying to.
Yes, it does.
No, 5'11", 5'12", and 5'13", I believe, without objection.
You're admitted.
Put the Elmo. Actually, Judge, I'm going
Oh, it's worse fast.
I have abundance of caution. I'm going to withdraw.
It's worse
States 5'11"
fast.
without objection. I
It's
believe.
worse. It's worse.
I apologize.
Apologize.
5'11" is withdrawn with the court's permission.
He just
Please, this is 5'12" and 5'13", I'm holding. Just tell folks what this is.
he just
That is the interview
withdrew
room in our Low Country SLED office.
whatever
Can you
he
see
did. He
cameras
withdrew
in there?
it.
Yes, up in the corners.
I know the sound is just.
Judge, I didn't know if you wanted to take a break. We're going to play the interview now, which may be semi-lengthy, and I just want to bring that to the court's attention. So I hope you don't mind me saying that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have you go to the jury room for a short break.
Great. We're taking a break. That's perfect. All right, let's go get caught up. Let's go get caught up while they take a break. That's just lovely. We might be able to just zoom over the break and get all caught up. Perfect. That's perfect. Oh. The judge has a face. That's a face. What is that face? All right. I think he just said we'll be in recess. They cut the audio, which is always so frustrating.
There's something being built up
Okay,
here,
there's
right?
the
There's
live
some-
feed. So we are now caught up to live, and we are in the middle of the timeline witness. So let me make sure both of my feeds are up after we had that internet outage. No, they're not. So let me make sure we're caught up on both. And we can answer some questions. There we go. There we go. Amora asked, Emily, did you watch the body cam released yesterday? Anything released after I stopped streaming yesterday? No, I was with the family. So I have not watched that. So I have not watched that yet. I will later, but I have not watched that yet. All right, let us go to some questions. Now that we're caught up, my internet has stopped glitching. It's just the audio on Law and Crime today has been really, really difficult. But they do have the closed captions. And if we're going to go to another video, though, I might, if they play the video and we get to see it, because now we've been seeing exhibits, I might switch feeds so we can just watch the video with a little bit clearer audio. So we're going to go to questions real quick. Yes, Miguelina, let us end the poll to see where we're at on when do you think the prosecution will rest. Question, money trail. Where is all the money? I don't think the prosecution is going to be able to ask or answer this question. I don't think they'll be able to answer this question at all. They've tried to do some tracing, but they haven't traced where it's gone. And there are big sums of money going out, like that $500,000 to Cousin Eddie. I'm worried that the jury is going to be like, is he being blackmailed? Like, what do people know? What else? Because the prosecution's like, everything's falling down. Everything's falling down. If I'm a juror, I'm going to be like, okay, well, what else is falling down? What else is going on? We've heard about the financial crimes. What else do people know about him? What else? So I think it's a worry because the jury's not being told, and I don't think the prosecution can. When do you think the prosecution will rest? Never We Live Here Now wins at 39%, Thursday at 34%, Friday with 19%, and Wednesday with 6%. Y'all aren't optimistic the prosecution's going to rest today. Y'all aren't optimistic at all. I get it. I get it. I get it. I'm not going to go to other videos right now because I need to answer questions. And we can do body camera a little bit later, but I want to get to questions. And they said this is a short break. We'll see if it actually is. So let us get to some questions. We need Team Bubba merchandise. Poor Bubba. Poor Bubba. Emily lets her hair down and everybody goes wild. It's been wild. The weather's been wild. The internet's wild. Everything's wild. Putting the hair up tomorrow. Tomorrow we're back to a bun. What's the biggest point scored by the prosecution and defense to you? The defense has done a good job at poking holes in the prosecution's case, but they haven't had their case in chief yet. So I'm sure with the defense, we will see more because we know they're going to have experts. So I think for the defense, they did a really good cross-examination with regard to the blood and the DNA. They're like, there's no blood here. They just boxed out the prosecution on any blood or any blood spatter or anything like that. And I think we're clear now that they've called the timeline witness, which this might be the prosecution's last witness or one of their very last witnesses. We're not getting a blood spatter expert after this witness. So if they call that person, it'll be in rebuttal. But I think it's clear the prosecution's not going to even try to introduce that. I think it's smart because the prosecution, if they're arguing he changed clothes, why are you trying to find blood spatter on the white shirt anyway? Because he had different clothes on and those clothes are missing. I think for the prosecution, Blanca has been very helpful. And I think that the testimony from Shelley Smith was very helpful. The two witnesses who Alec was telling to maybe not see what they were going to see, or maybe testify not quite to what they remember, but the way Alec wanted them to, or to, straight up fucking lie, to perhaps obstruct what they might have remembered. That I think was a big, big thing. Judy, why wouldn't they put Buster on the stand? What is Buster going to say to help? How does Buster help the prosecution at all? I don't see Buster being helpful at all. This witness will probably go through the timeline and Buster having an alibi. He's going through other alibis, but I don't think Buster helps the prosecution. And we've heard in the jail calls, which the prosecution will already have heard as well, Buster is still very much like Team Dad. Let the defense call Buster. And it also looks fucking heartless. So perception too. Will we hear from Bubba? Don't I wish we would? But no, I think they should bring Bubba into court and let the jury pet Bubba. So Jazz, thank you for the thoughtful question. Hopefully that helps. Renee said, Emily, you just made my day yesterday. All of it was just your rendition of Wrecking Ball will forever be my favorite. I can't wait for today's tea. I can't either. There were definitely Wrecking Ball moments yesterday. And the defense doesn't always, they push and they push and they push and they don't always see how they are pushing things open. But again, I come from the perspective of a former prosecutor. So pushing doors open is one of the things I looked for quite a lot in my own practice, because it's like, yeah, that we're going to talk about that now. You did this and now we have to address it. Because as a prosecutor, there's a lot that you really can't address legally, which is perfectly appropriate. But if the defense kind of pushes that open, you're looking for those openings, because if you don't address it as a prosecutor, you're not going to meet your burden of beyond a reasonable doubt. But the defense wants to push and push and push and say, no, we want to push up to the line so the prosecution can't respond, but we leave that lingering doubt in the jury's mind. So it is a push-pull between defense and prosecution. So I am always looking for, but did they force a situation where the prosecution has to respond? And the defense is always going to say, nah, that's not it. That door is not even cracked. We can't even see the light underneath the door. So that is one of the differences kind of in this case, is looking at when the defense is really pushing it too far. And they've pushed with the character stuff in this case a lot. And I think it's uncontrovertible that they are presenting character of a loving father. It's a great family. They never had a problem. Everything's as perfect as can be. And they didn't just let it be in Alec's interviews that were played, because they could have just left it there. They've asked witness after witness after witness about the family. So with that, let's continue on. Matt Bond, hello. Spiffy, legal, mumbo jumbo, talkie friend, hello. Chantel and Floof say hi and meow. Hello and meow. Jenny Cake said, what do you think about Alec Murdaugh trying on the raincoat in front of the jury? I think it's a horrible idea, and I don't think it's appropriate. And if the defense tried to do it, I think they could object to it, because there is no evidence that he was wearing, there was no evidence that he was wearing it. They said he wrapped the guns up in it. So I don't think there would be any reason for that. And it doesn't have to be his raincoat to wrap things up in it. If he brought it into the house and put it there, then he brought it in the house and put it there. And the DNA kind of says he didn't wear it because his DNA wasn't on any of like the zipper pulls and the things that you would manipulate if that was a garment that you wore regularly. So I think it was something old that they grabbed and wrapped up. Or didn't, because the defense is going to argue that's not the right one. That one's been in the house forever. And Bo Whoop was under it. And that's why there was GSR on it. Tinsley testified he didn't have any insurance. Tinsley did testify he didn't have any insurance. And I don't know if Tinsley knows that Alec doesn't have insurance or if Alec's then lying about the life insurance with Buster. There's a lot of questions on that, but that's all so ancillary to the trial that we might not know. But Tinsley said no one had insurance, including Alec. Alpha said just watch body language analytics video. I don't know that channel, and it has so many revealing stuff. Can't plaintiff bring a body language? No plaintiff in this case. This is a criminal case. It's the state, and body language is not admissible in court. It is not considered reliable. I enjoy watching body language, but it is not considered reliable for court. So, Erica said, not sure if this is a dumb question. Never need to preface a question. Just ask them. It's okay. I've missed some days watching this, but is there any evidence directly linking Alec to the murders? There will be no direct evidence in this case. There's no video of him doing it. There's no confession of him doing it. So when we're talking about direct evidence, we will not see the standard direct evidence. There's no eyewitnesses to it happen. This is a circumstantial case. A lot of homicides are. A lot of homicides are circumstantial cases. It's not unusual. So I have seen some of the body cam. I covered the very first officer that arrived on scene's body cam at some point in the video yesterday, I think. So I don't remember exactly which point, but we covered the first arriving officer on scene's body camera. I don't remember which day. The chat will remember. But if there is subsequent body cam footage, I have not seen that. But the first officer that arrived, we covered. Oh, the judge has a face.
You bring the jury.
He is, I hear you, Your Honor. He is tired. So are we. All right, I'm going to switch. If we get a video that we can see, or even if we can't, I will switch feeds for the better audio.
You bring the jury.
There's a lot of white noise in the long crime feed. So, when are they going to present the OnStar info? It should be with this witness or one witness after this. It should be today. So, question, if the defense brings up the roadside incident, does that open the door for the prosecution in their rebuttal case? It could, depending on what they do. It's really, when we talk about things like that, where the judge has said it doesn't come in yet, it's highly, highly fact specific. So we have to see exactly what happens at the moment. The fact that Tinsley said there was no life insurance on anyone does play in here. No, not really. I mean, especially with the roadside incident not coming in. And I don't know if Tinsley's right, but Harpootlian has now stated in court that Alec Murdaugh was trying to get a $10 million life insurance policy, or $12 million, or whatever number he said that was wrong, trying to get a life insurance policy for Buster. He's now said that in court. If Alec doesn't have life insurance, then Harpootlian is lying to the court, and that is a very big problem. Speaking of Poot, I don't know where he went. He pooted off out of court. He's certainly not sitting at counsel table.
Very good. You may proceed.
This is, I think, their timeline expert. This is their lead investigating officer, and that is
Special
normally
Agent
who does
David
it.
Owen. We stopped at right before we were talking about the interview on August 11th. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury who was at that interview? Who participated in that interview?
Alec Murdaugh and Corey Fleming.
And prior to playing the video, was this a voluntary statement?
Yes, it was.
The defendant was not in custody.
No, he was not.
He's free to leave.
Yes, he was.
Was there because he wanted to be there.
I'm going to have
Yes,
to
sir.
answer that in a second because I
Did he
can't.
tell you he wanted to ask some
We're going to
questions?
get to the video.
Yes, he did.
Did you tell him you wanted to ask him some questions?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I have, we have redacted the last part of this video with consent of both parties. What's contained on 517 includes the video without the redaction, and we now offer 517, I believe, without objection.
I don't know if Corey Fleming's on the witness list, but I
Permission to
don't think
publish.
they're going to call Corey Fleming in their
Someone,
case in
please.
chief. They might call Corey Fleming later.
And before we get started, please, thank you, Mr. Santa. Who is Corey Fleming?
Corey Fleming was a defense attorney out of
Was.
Beaufort area, also a friend of Alec Murdaugh's.
Was a defense
Did
attorney.
you know him prior to this?
No, sir, I did not.
Corey Fleming.
No, sir.
Thank you.
I don't know if we'll get to see this or not. Okay. There we go. Thank you for making it big.
Who's down to your right? Jeff Croft, who's testified. Jeff, you still in here? Is that here in the back?
Jeff, you still in here? Did you hear the lawyer? Jeff, you still in here? Bo, where are you sitting? Good Lord.
What time is this?
It indicates 9:50. The time was incorrect on our recording system. But my notes, my report indicates it was approximately 11:09 a.m.
How can your time be that off?
I'm sorry, Jeff, one of the jurors is requesting something, Jeff.
The juror can't see. We could hear the juror being like, I can't see. You guys, we're getting to watch it. Oh, they're not going to just play it. She's like, all your shit's in the way, counsel.
Doing good, man.
No, just make it big again.
Ready to see some cool weather. Me too.
Oh my God, stop clicking your pen.
To the left of Mr. Murdaugh, I know we've got an inset, smaller, but to the left of Mr. Alex Murdaugh, the defendant, is that Corey Fleming?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
In the blue jacket, in the upper corner video, in the blue
It was
jacket.
brutal at my house last week. Air conditioning went out. Oh, okay. Yes. No, you spell your name with two M's or one?
All right, third interview.
All right. Alec, I appreciate you coming in today. I know we got a lot to talk about. You have millions of questions. But before we get started with your questions, this has been going on for over 2 months. And we've done a lot of work. I know you have. And I've got some more questions that I need to get clarifications on. Sure. Okay. So we'll start with that.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
Maybe I'm mistaken. I thought we were coming here so you could update him on what's going on.
And I intend to do that as
Okay, let's do that first.
Okay.
All right, let's do that first.
The update is I'm doing the investigation, and I have some questions that I would like some answers to. And I mean, certainly, if I ask the question, if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to answer it.
No, I'm fine with that.
I mean, it's more clarifications of the 2 interviews you've already given me.
Totally understand.
Okay.
Just wait 1 second.
Yeah.
Wait 1 second. All right. I need for you to tell me, are you going to give us information, or are we just here for you to ask questions?
Now, I'm going to give you some information.
All right. Why can't you give us information first?
Some of the information that you're asking about are in my questions.
Huh.
And as we go through, you'll see.
Okay.
I don't mind it.
I know you don't, but I can't. I mean, I'm a friend, but I'm also a lawyer, and I like to know what we do.
What if we walked
into? What we're
into?
talking about.
Well,
I need you to answer this question. Are you asking him questions to further your investigation, or are you asking him questions because you think that he's a suspect? I need a straight answer.
I am asking these questions to further my investigation.
Does that mean that you're not asking him these questions as a suspect?
Everyone's a suspect, sir.
Because I'm not comfortable with you asking him questions as a suspect when I came here with the thought that you were going to be telling him where you are in the investigation, what it is you've done, seen, uncovered, whatever. That's why we came here.
Well, let me respond to your question.
Not how that works, sir.
It may not be the correct answer that you're looking for.
I know that's how you want it to work.
And I've told Alec this when we first met. Any homicide investigation.
Hey, Fleming, if you don't want to do it,
You
just
start
leave.
with the closest person and or the person who found the deceased.
Yep.
Both cases, that's Alec. Everybody stays in that investigation until we can get them out. And right now, because of the questions that I have that I need explanations for, I cannot get Alec out.
Okay. That's a reasonable statement. I don't have a problem with that statement. That's fine. I don't read it, but everybody in the United States of America has an opinion on this case. And because I know everybody, I know it's a bunch of bullshit.
You know everybody in the United States, Corey, really? I love
I can't
this.
imagine that y'all are going to be asking about nonsense in the internet.
No. I mean, just like you, I'm aware of what's out there.
Yeah.
I have not read every article. I don't care to read every article because they're not
So
doing
worried
the
about the
investigation.
That's right. That's right.
They're so
All right,
worried
well,
about what's being written.
You
Interesting.
know, Alec, if you're comfortable and you feel okay,
Yes.
then that's fine. But I
Anything to
won't.
help.
All right, that's fine.
Well, at
So I'm
least
gonna go
one of
back
his
to
lawyers asked some
Monday
tough
morning.
questions.
And
I
you
mean, he's
went
not
to
a
the
lawyer
office.
anymore, but
Okay. What time did you go to the office? Who was at your house when you left? And what time did you go to the office?
We had been to a ball game that weekend. I don't remember exactly what time. It would have been
the ball game was not on Monday.
somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30, probably 10 o'clock maybe at the latest, something like that.
And when I ask about time, I'm not saying, it was 5:11 or something like that. I
Totally
need
understand.
ballpark,
That's
as close as you can get to it.
And if you need to know exactly when, there would be a keypad that will tell when exactly I went in my office that I can get for you.
Okay.
So
So you have a key fob to get in your office?
a card.
A card?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the security they put in after
You know, a little bit.
the murders.
It's
No?
probably a little
This
bit
was
on
the
the
day of the
later side
murders,
of
so
that.
no.
If I
So they had
Yes, I
key
know
cards.
Maggie got up early to get out of there because she had an appointment in Charleston.
Interesting.
Just don't remember if I left right after she did or I piddled around.
Oh,
And I already know that Paul stayed at John Marvin's that night, so it was just you and Maggie.
he just said Maggie was leaving from Moselle.
And I know when you were at the office, you were working on motions, and
Maggie wasn't
some of those
leaving from
motions you
Moselle.
dealt with were for Paul's, the boat accident, or the boat case.
Oh dear.
I'm not really doing the legal work.
I understand, but, you're Paul's dad, you're a lawyer.
Maggie
you're
wasn't there.
definitely
No, she wasn't.
know what's
Maggie
going
was
on.
at Edisto.
So what were those motions? Did it deal with Parker's, or was it the actual boat accident, or?
It was the civil case.
What time did you leave and get home?
Earlier than normal. I'd say 5:30.
When you left the office?
Sir.
Okay. What time did Paul get home that night?
Me and Paul got there about the same time. Maybe he was a little bit later than me, or maybe a little bit earlier than me, but it was close to the same time.
And y'all rode around the farm. I believe you said 2 different trucks, or 2 different vehicles.
So,
What were those 2 different vehicles?
we rode in the white pickup truck, and we rode in the black pickup truck.
And either one of those, did you see any long guns?
That's earlier than he would have gotten home from when he left
Did you see any rifles
the
or
law
shotguns?
firm.
I don't remember seeing any that day, no. We did have pistols.
Yeah, because I know you said you went target practicing.
Well, not really target practice, just shoot.
Yeah.
We rode around for a couple hours, just looked at everything.
They
All
couldn't
stuff
have.
fall down on the farm, and we just spent, time together.
Paul's phone doesn't put him there till like 7:30.
I'm sorry.
Paul's phone doesn't put him there till like 7:30. Jeannie Secondraw says he's still at the office after 5. So this timing is not accurate. He wasn't home at 5:30. They didn't ride around for 2 hours. Maggie stayed at Edisto and had
We
people
started
working at
out
Edisto on Monday.
going to look at the sunflowers because we was worried about the sunflowers. That was the first thing we looked at. And we just rode. We just rode and looked at. I mean, we hadn't done it in a while. We just rode, talked, and rode, talked.
What you talk about?
Everything, because one of the main things, he'd been having trouble, his feet had swelled up, and we were worried about blood pressure and stress on him, and I mean, he handled all this stuff so amazingly, but I mean, we were just so worried about it. But I mean, we talked about that, we talked about the farm, we just talked about everything.
Has Paul been seeing a doctor for this feet?
No, sir.
So y'all trying to get him to go?
Trying to get him to go.
You're so worried about his health.
Yeah, he had been resistant, but much less so after his feet swelled up. I mean, he'd been having all kind of little problems, but much less after his feet swelled up.
As parents, I'm sure you and Maggie stayed on him about going, how did he respond to you?
To going out?
No, going to the doctor.
He did.
When y'all talked about it.
He's very resistant. Very, very resistant. I mean, we talked to him about seeing a doctor, about the stresses of everything with the boat wreck. He didn't think he needed to do that. I mean, we tried to watch him really closely. But he was resistant.
What time did Maggie get back home that night?
Later. I'd say probably the best I can tell, a couple hours after
Couldn't have been.
after we got there.
When you and Paul returned back to the house, was Maggie there?
I can't remember if Maggie came by the shed when Paul and I were up there, or if we met her at the house. But, it's not unusual for her, if we're messing around, for her to swing through up there.
Mm-hmm.
And Maggie wasn't supposed to be coming home. I've since found out she was worried about me And me worried about my dad until she came home.
So at that point in the interview, she said,
She was worried
did
about
he
me.
tell you she came home because she was worried about his dad?
Yes.
Basis for the objection.
What's the objection?
Leading, he just repeating what the jury just heard on the video.
Counsel?
Yes, sir.
God, I can play it and come back and ask him to clarify that, that's all. Go ahead, please.
He says Maggie came home because she was worried about Alec, not because he asked her to.
The man wasn't supposed to be coming home. I've since found out she was worried about me and me worried about my dad until she came home.
He did say Maggie wasn't supposed to be coming home.
It
She
is,
was worried about me.
We were having work done down there. And I wasn't 100%, but it's pretty well she was going to stay at Edisto.
So it kind of surprised you that she came back?
That didn't totally surprise me. She'd let me know earlier that she was coming home. But then I found out later why she came home.
Because you asked.
For you.
Sure.
What time did y'all sit down and eat dinner?
Not too long after that. Blanc had made dinner. And so the three of us ate dinner together.
What was the conversation around the dinner table?
Normal.
Oh, he never mentioned that he asked her to be there. Never.
I mean, I can't tell you exactly, but
How was Maggie's appointment in Charleston that day?
I think it had gone good. We didn't really get the chance to talk about it in detail. She's been having a couple little medical issues. I can't even remember which one. It wasn't anything huge. I can't remember exactly which one.
Just a couple little
she went
things.
for.
And after dinner, Maggie and Paul went to the kennels, or?
You know, I don't know exactly how that went. I stayed on the couch and I dozed off. And then I got up.
Did you watch TV that night?
I know the TV was, I believe the TV was on. But I wasn't watching it. You know, I mean,
Stop right there, please. I'm not going to ask you to repeat that, but this next question regarding a tree video, had you confronted him with that before?
No, sir, I had not.
Okay, please go ahead.
Oh.
There is a video on Paul's phone of you and him on the farm that night. And you were in khaki pants and a dress shirt. You were playing with a tree.
I don't remember playing with a tree.
Yeah. I guess there was a tree sapling or something that had fallen over or bending over, and you were trying to get it to stand back.
So they don't
Stand
show
up.
it to him. They just
But
tell him.
The question in that is, when I met you that night, you were in shorts and a t-shirt. At what point in that evening did you change clothes?
I'm not sure. It would have been,
Before dinner or after dinner?
no, it would have been, what time of day was that? I would have thought I had already changed.
There's not a time.
Is he asking you now what time that picture was?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
I was stat on it because there's so many posts, but I want to say it looks to be about dusk. So that would have been 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Don't tell him.
I guess that changed when I got back to the house.
I guess I changed when I got back to the house.
Earlier when we spoke, and you talked about waking up from your nap and going to check on your mother, and you tried to call Maggie, and you tried to call Paul, and then you sent Maggie a
He
text
definitely
that
didn't
you
know
were
that
gonna
video
check on your mother.
existed.
You also told me that Maggie didn't normally go with you to check on your mother, but that she might ride that night. Did you go by and check on her?
Go by and check on my mom?
Maggie, before you left to go?
No, I didn't.
With her not responding to you, and thinking that she might ride with you, why didn't you?
Uh-huh.
I don't remember having plans that Maggie was going to ride with me.
Not what she said.
But maybe she had told me that she was that night. I don't recall that. I don't remember that specifically, but I mean, it wasn't. She didn't normally go with me. I mean, it's not like we had plans that she was going to ride with me, but if she was
Not
going,
what her sister said. Yeah, he's offering perhaps explanations. Maybe she told me, but we didn't have plans, but that's not what the sister said.
Here they are. These are just maps I pulled off of Google.
okay.
And Maggie's sister testified, and Blanca testified in part that Maggie was called to come back to Moselle to go with him to see his parents.
Moselle to your mom's.
I would have gone to the right on Moselle Road, 63, into Barnville, turn left on the road, right before 278, 601, and then in front of the school, turn right. That's how I believe I went.
And they said, how would you, they asked, how would you have gone to
Right on Moselle.
his
Normal
mom?
way.
He
Right
said,
on Moselle.
my
to
normal
Dawson
way.
Road.
But he didn't say what he did that night.
63 into Barnville, left on whatever the road is that goes to the school.
Rob, to answer your question, at some point he walks out of this
And
interview.
then either 63 or left on the road that goes
But he doesn't
down
say what he did
and
that
down
night.
63.
He says, I normally go. Well, what did you do that night, though? If you went away, you don't
How long
normally
did you
go.
go visit your mother that night?
I mean, it wasn't infrequent. It wasn't all the time. I mean, visited her, you know, all times a day.
Just checking on her, especially with your dad being short.
She had been having a particularly, you know, she's got Alzheimer's really bad, or pretty bad. And she had been particularly agitated. You know, with him not being there, and checked on her more in the days and weeks following my dad's passing than, you know, otherwise, but several times a week, you know, any time.
How long would you say you were at your mom's that night?
45 minutes, an hour.
Oh. Don't, counsel, you're going to get objected
Did you
to.
talk to Shelley Smith
Oh,
at this point?
better. Good question. Good. That's a good question.
She had been interviewed, yes. I had not spoken with her by that time. Yes, sir.
Please go.
You had to go back home to make any stops on the way.
And then he just dropped it.
On the way there,
On the way to your mom's.
But the jury
work,
remembers.
to Trip back home.
stops. No, I didn't go anywhere. I went
He told Shelley
straight there. I did not. No, sir.
45 minutes to an hour.
And earlier in the day when you were down at the shed and kennels with Paul, did y'all discuss any injuries to any dogs?
Did he and I? No, but Rogan Gibson told me about the dog's tail and somebody saying his leg was broken.
What?
Which one's his dog?
You turn up Mr. Owens's volume.
Video.
Yes. Or turn up the volume.
Pump up the volume, pump up the volume, pump up the volume, dance. So this interview is just the prosecution has gotten a lot of criticism from me for things not being well-timed. This is a well-timed interview. This interview would not have had the impact it's having if we hadn't seen all of the other witnesses that testified about the things. This is a good placement of putting this video at the end, because then we're going, that's not what Shelley Smith said. That's not what
Did he and I?
his sister
No,
said.
but Rogan
That's
Gibson
not
told me
on and on
about
and on.
the dog's tail and somebody saying his leg was broken.
So right here in the interview, your question was, did Paul tell you that? So did he deny that he'd had a conversation with Paul about that?
He never said he had a conversation.
What
I
if,
don't know if that's a huge point.
what, if anything, did he say about whether he'd had a conversation with Paul about that?
He didn't indicate that he had a conversation with Paul. He said he had a conversation with Rogan Gibson.
That he'd heard that from Rogan?
Yes, sir.
Counsel.
Which one's his dog?
It's a
Alec doesn't know about the dog video
chocolate
either.
puppy, I think.
Was the leg broken?
Not that I know of.
I can certainly see why something might be wrong with his tail, because when I was out there, he was chasing his tail and looking through the fence and trying to grab it. That was puppy energy.
Did he just say puppy energy? I'm here for
When
all
you
the
got
big
back
puppy
to
energy.
which driveway did you enter?
I went in the brick gates.
To Maggie and Paul weren't there. Were there vehicles at the house?
Yes, sir.
How did they get down there that night?
I was hoping you were going to be able to tell me that.
What?
The only thing that I can come up with is that black truck. Is that Buster's old black truck?
Yes, sir.
Does it normally stay down at the farm, or does it stay at the house?
Both.
Both. Did Maggie ever walk down there?
Maggie walked down there a lot. But Paul, I mean,
I was hoping you would tell me.
You showed me some proof that Paul walked down there that night, I would be surprised. Absolutely surprised.
Well, thinking about Paul's health concerns, do you think Maggie could have gotten him to walk that night? Say, come on, walk with me this one time.
You know, it's possible, but again, that would be highly, highly unusual. He would have talked her into riding.
Yeah, you have a Fifth Amendment right. It only works if you exercise it and don't say anything. This interview might have been what talked him into getting prosecuted. This interview.
So when you were at the kennels,
All the lies in this interview might be why they chose
you
to
were
bring
just
this
down there with
case.
Paul. When you left, and went back to the house for dinner?
You know, I mean, Paul and I were just knocking around up at the shop, the shed, the kennels, and just the whole property. And that was before dinner, yes, sir.
And you didn't go back down there after dinner until your return trip from visiting your mother?
Yes, sir.
That's it. Keep going.
Yeah, don't ask. Didn't go back to the kennels until after he returned home from his mom's. We heard it.
I've got information that Paul was on the phone.
Had you confronted him with what you're about to ask him prior to this?
No, I had not.
That's a good question.
The question you had just asked him, did that deal with whether he went down to the kennels or not after supper?
Correct.
And he said he had not.
He had not.
The video says you lying.
And Maggie was heard in the background. And you were heard in the background.
It's a chicken.
And that was prior to 9 p.m.
I heard Rogan Gibson ask me if I was up there. He said he thought it was me.
Was it you?
At 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
No, sir. Not if my times are right.
Not if my times are right?
Who do you think it could have been?
I have no idea.
And Rogan's been around your family for pretty much all of his life.
Oh, absolutely.
And he recognizes your voice, and you
Rogan
have a
told him
distinct voice.
about the video. Rogan told him about the video.
You think of anybody else that has
He had a heads up
a
about
voice similar to
this.
yours that he may have misinterpreted?
No, sir. I mean,
He knew that was coming. Did they redact out the
when we were
part?
talking, he had asked me that. So, I mean, he had told me that he thought I was up there.
Did that surprise you?
Yes, sir.
Y'all, Rogan didn't get the video, but Rogan was confronted with the video with police before this interview. So Rogan knew about the video because he saw it with police. And he gave Alec the heads up.
Where were the dogs?
They were like they were when I didn't put dogs up.
Okay.
So
they weren't running loose?
however they were.
Okay. At one point in the 911 call, you say here, like you're talking to somebody else or to something else.
What?
I say here.
Here, yes, sir.
What? He said what? We're gonna have to go listen to the 911 call again.
So the dispatcher is asking you if they're breathing, and you said no. And she asked did you see anyone else in the area, and you said no. And she asked about guns near them, and you said no. And then you kind of stutter and start moving around, and you said here.
I don't have any memory of saying that. I guess I'd have to listen to it but I don't recall a dog being out. I'm certain that there was not a dog out.
We moved back to the dogs.
I mean, there's other things people have told me about that 911 call that I don't remember. I don't know here. Like I was calling a dog.
Calling a dog, talking to somebody else. I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Sir, and obviously there was nobody else out there.
Okay.
And I'm certain that there was not a dog loose. But I don't remember saying anything about Buster would know. Something about threats. I was asked about that later. If I had information about, or if Buster had
he
information
bridged
about
off
threats,
that topic
I
real
said
fast.
he would know.
He wants to talk about something else. Look at him. Move away from that topic. He is running away from that topic in this interview. That's where the red flag is. The here. Because he moves to other people said this other stuff. Do you see how fast he moved away from it?
Have you learned anything new about any threats against Paul or your family?
Nothing really new, no sir. Outside of things that Randy's told you, or there was just so many things on the internet that,
Well, the internet's gonna internet. The internet's gonna internet. Agreed. It's one thing we can agree on in this interview. Agreed. Internet's gonna internet. But you can't blame the internet for the murder of your wife and kid.
So during the 911 call, and we also talked about that this night. That night, you returned back to the house to get a shotgun.
Yes, sir.
What door did you enter?
The best that I can remember, I went in the side door.
Does it have a keypad? Because we have
And I went
questions.
straight to the gun cabinet.
Does that have a keypad? It doesn't seem like it
Were
did.
you focused on any particular shotgun, or you just grabbed one?
I just grabbed one.
How do you normally load your shotguns?
One hand at a time.
Avid hunters load shotguns in special ways, different types of munitions, and I'm just asking you how you load yours.
I mean, I normally put it in the chamber and push the button.
What type of shot do you load?
All kinds. I mean, I've loaded bird shot, buck shot, slugs,
I never hear bird
And
shot again.
shot.
at the same time? I mean, would you load like a bird shot and a buck shot in the same load?
Not normally. I mean, normally you're putting in, a load for whatever you're hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie D asked, when is this interview in respect to when he told
Reason
Blanca
I'm
about the
asking
shirt?
about that.
Before, it's that day before he told Blanca about the
The
shirt.
shot shells that we recovered that night.
So this
One was a
is
turkey
when he's
load.
confronted with the video,
One was
and
buckshot.
then he talks to
Understood
Blanca.
that.
The shotgun that you had
It's a
with
great
you
question,
that
thank
night,
you.
there was a bird shot and a buck shot. When Jeff went back the next day, I'm not sure which attorney it was, pointed out that there had been a shotgun laying on the pool table that he had put away, and pointed out that ammunition that was with that, and it was a buck shot and a bird shot. And then the shotgun that we took for potential comparison, it was also loaded with a bird shot and a buck shot. So I have all of these consistent loads along with what's that in the feed room. I call it the feed room at the kennels. Is that what you call it?
His loads are messy is what they're getting to.
Good enough.
Okay, if I say feed room, I just want you to know what I'm talking about.
The night I grabbed the shells that I could get my hands on, I don't, I had no idea exactly what I had.
Okay. Also, when we talked, I asked you if it was normal to keep guns down at the kennels. And you said you had to check. Have you been able to check to
Also,
see what
this
was
is why you have
missing
two people
from
in
your
interviews.
collection?
Do you see the notes being
I
taken?
have.
So the interviewer
Yes,
doesn't have to focus
I
on the
know what's missing
details.
from
They just focus on the questions.
what I believe is missing from our guns.
There's-
Okay, and what are those?
There's
Yes, I can.
3 guns that I think are missing.
Okay.
3.
And what kind of guns are those?
There would be a Benelli shotgun, a Browning shotgun, and a pump shotgun.
Not the 300 blackout.
The Benelli and the Browning, are they pump or autos?
The Benelli and the Browning are automatic.
And the pump shotgun, what brand is that?
I believe it's a Remington, but I'm not positive.
Are they like standard brown and black, all black or camo?
The Benelli is black. The Browning is camo, and the pump is camo.
So
Would
3
you have
missing
those serial
shotguns, no
numbers
missing
recorded anywhere?
ARs.
I don't have them recorded, but I'm sure. I don't know where the pump shotgun exactly came from, but I should be able to have the Benelli and the Browning.
Okay. Because we don't know if they're stolen or where they are. So I really can't get them entered into NCIC. But
Go ahead.
But I could alert the ATF to where if that gun is run, that there would be an alert on it and it would get me at least back to the gun and the
Maybe you should
person
do
that
that.
may have had it.
Absolutely.
So if we could work on that and get those as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
You said Benelli's black, Browning's camo, and the pump is camo?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
None of these interviews have
Browning is
been
a brown
aggressive.
camo, and
The only sparring was,
pump
and it
is
wasn't even
a
that, was at the
green
beginning
camo.
with
And you
Corey
know, I
Fleming.
understand also that
And no shade to Corey
a
Fleming. He should have told him not
300
to have this interview and
was
walked out.
used that night. And I know there's been some, I understand John Bedingfield said he only had 2 of those, one of which was lost 3 a long time ago, but I'm telling you, now I am certain that we replaced that gun. All right?
Actually, John knows that he sold Maggie a 3rd gun.
Okay. Okay.
This is the
And
300.
the story was that she was supposed to let you know that she paid for it for you to go sign the paperwork. And that never occurred.
Okay. So that's why it wasn't a number? Okay.
Well, he has the number. He just doesn't have a final sell on the ATF paperwork.
Okay. That was replacing the one.
Because you never went and signed it. That makes
That's
sense.
correct.
Finally, something makes
Both of
sense.
those 300s, those serial numbers are with the ATF and flagged in the system.
But then it's his buddy, so he just gave him the gun anyway instead of signing it over.
Okay.
And that's, you know, we've talked about the shot shells. So the cartridge casings were 300 blackout cartridge casings that were found by Maggie. There were also cartridge casings found by your house, by the side door to the gun room,
Oh,
and at the shooting range.
they're talking about.
Asking about shell casings that were found by Maggie. That's Maggie's body, correct?
The cartridge casings found by Megan, yes.
Had he ever been confronted with this information prior to right now, that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I
I
appreciate.
believe he was, but not by me, I don't think.
I appreciate that he makes it clear what Alec knew and what he didn't know for the jury. That I appreciate. It's much more helpful than just
There
repeating.
were also cartridge casings found by your house, by the side door to the gun room, and at the shooting range. And the ones by the house and some of the ones found at the shoot range are confirmed matches to the ones found by Maggie.
Okay.
So, which gives another concern. I've got the same load as the shot shells in multiple guns and 300 blackout that match ones found on your property.
So you now believe that those guns, that Paul's guns were used?
Yes,
Okay.
He's saying, so you now think Paul's guns were used
and missing.
and missing.
And I understand somebody had seen that gun recently, but, you know, and I'd asked Buster about it. I believe that gun has been gone since back before Christmas.
That's why they
Nolan-
brought in the witness. Nolan
No one recalls
cited it in.
Paul's first 300 going missing around Halloween at a party at Hampton.
I know. I
Halloween
see
of
the club. I see the closed
2020.
captions. I don't know, y'all.
When did y'all?
No, that, because
No,
that
no, no. It was
years.
Yeah, it was whatever Christmas he got it. So it was 17. Christmas is 17. So it was the Halloween after in 18 is when Nolan believes it was taken out of Paul's truck. There's and I don't. It would take me a while to find those notes, but Mark Williams or Matt Williams is a family friend.
It's a very interesting interview.
I may have the name wrong, but there was hundreds of people at this Halloween party. Nolan says adults were there, kids were there, and Nolan knows that the gun was in Paul's truck when they got to the party, and when they went to leave the party, it was gone. So that's the timeline on when that gun.
But then the
missing.
replacement gun.
Okay. I mean, I knew it had been a while.
And then I think in April of 19 is when, April of 18.
Christmas is 16, January 17 is when they did the work.
Because he cited it in off the side of the house in March, April. Everybody's looking at
Another
something.
part in the 911 call.
Someone.
You made the comment, I should have known. And the questioning that surrounded, dispatcher's asking, is anybody else supposed to be at the house? And you said, no ma'am, please hurry. And she says, we're getting somebody out there to you. And your next comment was, I should have known. What do you reference in that statement?
I don't remember saying that, but I guess, all the
Don't guess.
threats and,
Don't guess. When you're talking to the
and
police,
I've
don't
been
guess.
convinced it just was something to do with the boat wreck and, all of that.
Don't guess. They're just confronting him with his statement after statement. Corey Fleming should have pulled the plug on this at the beginning. Oh, you're not giving us info? Great, we'll walk it. I think this is the interview that led them to prosecute him. Based on
where
watching
he
this.
wouldn't listen to me.
Did you ever get physical with him?
No, sir.
Something about Maggie, did Paul get physical with Maggie?
Yeah.
I believe
She
that.
probably wanted to at times.
I'm sure she wanted to with all of us.
Yeah.
Why is his attorney letting him answer? I don't know.
And the one time Paul did that, he had too much to drink. In a very isolated incident.
Where was that? Was that at Moselle or Edisto?
That was at Moselle.
So that was pretty recent.
No, sir. It had been a while.
Had a lot to drink.
When you turned Paul over and his cell phone popped out and you picked it up and your statement was something like, I thought about doing something, but then I put it back down. And that was the interview, our first interview. What were your intentions with the phone?
I don't know. I mean, when I went up to him and the phone came out, I don't remember having intentions of doing anything with the phone.
You say when I went up to him, the phone came out.
Yes. Phone popped out when he told me the first interview.
Okay, thank you.
What's notable to me is he asked Blanca to remember he's wearing a Vinnie Vines shirt because he can't exactly remember what he's wearing in that tree video, and they don't show it to him.
Going back to when
They
you
asked him
y'all
about it,
ate
and Blanca's
dinner
like, "No,
together,
I know what you were wearing. I
Miss
fixed
Maggie
your
got
collar that
home,
morning."
You and Paul got back from riding around. Can you estimate about how long y'all would have been at the dinner table or ate at the dinner table?
I mean, it wasn't any long drawn out dinner, you know, just.
I mean, just a guess. You said there was conversation at the dinner table, but
Ooh,
15, 20
that's a look.
minutes. How long it takes to.
Do you think he's thinking, I shouldn't have talked? I should have just shut up. I should have just not said anything to the police, because that's correct.
David asked you just earlier about when y'all were riding around the
Bree,
farm.
he could have gotten up and walked out, and at some point he does.
And you said y'all had
He could have walked out. He
a
didn't,
pistol
but he
in
could
that
have.
truck. Y'all had shot a few times, really not target practice, but shot a few times. You said that you had, on that day, you didn't see any long guns, rifles or shotguns in the vehicle. Prior to that, how long prior to that do you recall seeing guns or any guns in that vehicle?
I mean, Paul always had guns,
Okay.
so. I mean, it was very unusual for Paul not to have guns,
And when you say gun, is it rifles or shotguns or
everything.
both? Okay.
Yes, sir.
His truck that he normally drove, I believe it was the Platinum, went into the shop that Friday prior to. I think Mark Ball went and got some video from Jimmy Butler's that shows Paul dropping the truck off and not removing anything from it. So basically, he would have taken the rifles out at home.
If you ever
Do you
need a
know what
visual
he did
for
with those rifles?
why we have a
If he
right
would
against
put them in the truck, or if he
self-incrimination,
put them
this
in
is
the
the
house,
visual.
or would he have? So the truck that he drove, where was it parked on that Friday? So where would he have swapped everything out?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the truck that he drove on Friday.
Chat will have it.
What truck did he swap out from?
Yeah, AM
I
self-snitched.
think when he went to Charleston, Dale said that he helped hook up the boat to one of the white Fords. And I know one's a gas and one's a diesel.
It wouldn't have been the gas truck.
He
going
thinks
to
he can talk
Charleston.
his way out of it, and he just can't.
I'm not sure. So this occurred the Friday before everything happened.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure. On Friday,
I actually believe him about not knowing about what Paul's doing with the truck. Truthfully, he's like, I don't know.
I had gone to stay in the hospital with my dad.
Wait, because Dad
Don't
got out of the hospital
believe that I
on
saw
Saturday.
Paul.
Got Krispy Kremes, back in the hospital Monday. Fair.
On Friday.
When did y'all go up to Columbia?
On Saturday.
For the game. And then they brought Krispy Kremes.
What
That I
did Paul
remember.
do?
You know, I mean, Paul, he didn't. He liked to go to sports when there was a crowd, but that wasn't his thing. We go.
Is that always how it's always been, or because of the voting?
No. I mean, he wasn't into ball as much.
I'm not into live sporting events either, but I do like snacks. I think that's clear. And hockey is my favorite for snacks. This is not hot as fuck. So if I have to go watch sport in person,
One thing that I'm trying to understand
water polo, not good
is
snacks. Hockey, good snacks.
your timeline. You said you probably went to the office 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and you left early around 5 or 5:30.
No, you didn't.
And there's been some other timelines or times that we've talked about and you can't quite remember what the times are or what time of day it was. When the dispatcher asked you when was the last time you saw Maggie or talked to
Yeah,
Maggie,
I think his lawyer is
You said an
sitting in
hour
the
and a
corner
half,
on
2
his
hours
phone
ago.
playing Bejeweled or something. Or Love and
to
Pies.
me that's,
or Two
you know,
Dots.
a set,
it
without
looks like
thinking
he's
about
sitting
it,
there on the
you
phone, not
rattled
listening.
off that time. We're sitting here trying to figure out a timeline.
The question was, you told the dispatcher hour, 2 hours ago?
Hour and a half to 2 hours.
Hour and a half, 2 hours. What time was the 911 call?
10:06 p.m.
Hour and a half, 2 hours prior to that.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Which is false.
You having trouble coming up with
Thanks,
a
counsel, for
specific
bringing me
time?
back. I was thinking about donuts.
Oh, that's fair.
Tell me again what I said to the
Tell me again what I
dispatcher.
said. Also, that's fair.
You said an hour and a half ago, probably 2 hours.
And what time was that?
That was when you were on the phone, and the 911 call was made at 10:06.
I'm not getting a timeline right if I've been traumatized.
So given 2 hours back, that would have been 8.
I mean, I think that's probably about, I think that's probably about right. And so what do you believe I'm giving you an inconsistent answer?
No, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it when I'm asking you what time you went to the office that day, what time you got home.
Can I ask you a question? At this point in the investigation,
If
did you
looks
have
could.
the video back from Paul's phone showing the dog at the kennels?
No, sir, I had not.
Oh.
You know, you're saying 5 or 5:30. I've gotten the card readout from the law firm.
So they're just
shows you
going
going
on
in
the
at 5,
phone
5:30.
call with
Going to the store?
Nolan,
Yes, sir.
with Rogan at that point, not the video.
And Randy says when he left about 6 o'clock, you were still there. So the times aren't matching up. And I'm just trying to get, I'm just trying to get an understanding of why.
I believe I left, so that's not the first time I was at my office that day.
There were several readings, but your card wouldn't work. Somebody actually had to let you in.
Oh.
Okay?
But I've got your card opening the door
Uh-oh,
at the
last
law
page of my
firm
notebook.
at 5:30.
Oh.
And then Randy saying when he left at 6, you were still there.
Oh.
I'm trying to understand.
You know, I left the office earlier than I normally do.
What's your normal time to leave?
I mean, it's not unusual for me to be there till dark. You know, I try to get home when Maggie's home, you know, before dark.
His timeline's super fucked.
Myself in dark.
That's right. So, you know, if it was 5:30 or 6, you know, I don't think I was still there at 6 o'clock. But, you know, if I was, it wasn't long after that.
But if I was.
So, you know, I believe that I went straight home. So,
I believe I went straight home.
my car, have y'all been able to get Chevrolet to download my?
We're still working on that.
Get Chevrolet to download my car.
It's a long process.
I mean,
It takes a year. And then Chevy just gives it to you when you're in the middle of trial.
I got home early enough for Paul and I to ride the property for a substantial length of time. You know, more than an hour. I thought probably a couple of hours that we were together, but
I have
somewhere
complete time blindness. I couldn't tell you any of this stuff.
we rode down all the roads. I believe that we rode all over. We rode all over.
Oh my God, the coughing. I'm sorry, it's so loud towards the microphone, it scares me every time. Is that the end of the video? Oh, no, it's in segments. Okay.
Have I been able to answer some of your questions? I know you probably have more. But with my questionings, trying to get some things cleared up, have I given you some answers?
Well, I do know more than I did, for sure. So, yes, some of those questions have certainly, yes, sir.
It was smart of the prosecution to hold us till now. It was very smart. It makes much more sense now.
I would like to know exactly what happened.
So would we.
Me too. The best that I've been able to put together.
It looks like. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I believe Paul was shot first. For the simple fact of where he was located.
How many times was he shot?
Twice.
I thought he shot Maggie first because they could tell he shot her in the back of the head.
I thought they shot Maggie first because they shot her in the back of the head.
Maggie first, or Maggie was shot first?
Alex said that he thought Maggie was shot first because she had been shot in the back of the head.
Go ahead.
That's
We may honestly never know who was first,
What?
but I think it was Paul, for the simple fact he wouldn't have, if he saw his mother getting shot, he wouldn't have run to that feed room. And that's where one of the guns was. But we've already established family guns were used. And if they came from Paul's truck was at the house. So where were they?
How did they get down there?
How did they get down there?
He said, I thought he shot Maggie
Did you just
first,
ask
or I
him,
thought
we've
they.
established family guns were used?
I need to
Yes, I
listen
did.
to it again.
Objections overruled.
It was legal.
Proceed.
What was his response?
Sorry.
Would nothing be the answer?
Correct.
Counsel, just let him answer. Just be patient.
Go ahead.
I'm not patient. He needs to be patient. He's in trial, not me.
I mean, it's normal for y'all to leave your keys in the cars.
I can't wait to watch this again.
However, if somebody showed up and did this, you're not going to take Paul's truck back to the house and leave the key in it.
Indeed.
Stop interrupting the video.
How did they get down there?
Ah!
We've already established family guns were used. And if they came from Paul's truck was at the house. So where were they?
How did they get down there?
How did they get down there? I mean, it's normal for y'all to leave your keys in the cars. However, if somebody showed up and did this, you're not going to take Paul's truck back to the house and leave the key in it.
I mean, do you know that the guns were in the truck? I mean, could they have been somewhere else?
They could have been somewhere else. I mean, he didn't have his normal truck.
Do you know that the guns were in the
I
truck?
understand that Nolan Tootin believes he saw the gun 3 weeks beforehand. And I haven't talked to him, but is he believes it was the one that, not the one that was at the house?
No. Interesting, when they talk about the ordering of who's killed, Alex says, I thought Maggie was shot first because she was shot in the back of the head. And then law enforcement says, I thought Paul was shot first because he wouldn't have gone to the feed room if he saw his mother got shot.
Was his shotgun that he always kept, that Paul always kept with him?
Paul primarily kept, he kept one of a couple of Benellis.
It was a camo Benelli. Is the last one that Nolan saw.
Okay.
And HDD, some type of 7mm rifle.
Yes, sir.
Do you have that one at home?
Yes, sir. That's what he saw?
That's what he saw.
Because I was told by somebody that Nolan saw a 300.
He told me he had not seen a 300 since March after turkey season.
Who told you?
Okay, well, somebody.
Those were the go-to guns, and those are the last ones that he saw.
The
SLED and Benelli. He had not seen the 300 since March during turkey season.
Alex's brain is working trying to put these stories together. But again, the defense can argue that's him trying to figure out who
He
did
saw it during
this.
turkey season?
Yes, sir.
Because there was some point, back when it was missing at Christmas time.
Different guns.
The third one's missing at Christmas time?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Alex talking to everybody in this period of time. We know that from the witnesses. He's talking to all of them. It's what he did after the boat case too.
Did y'all get any kind of forensic of anything that y'all found? Just the rain and the...
I mean, we got plenty of DNA from the scene, but...
He asked about the rain.
It's Nolan's, it's Rogan's, it's Alex, it's Paul's, it's Maggie's, it's Buster's.
How about you?
Yeah.
Hey, can you tell me for sure? Did either one of them live after they were shot first? No.
Can you tell me for sure what?
Not long.
Does that...
The shooting happened very quickly. Very quickly.
Is this one person, two persons, three persons?
Is that the first time he's ever executed?
Yes, sir.
Ever?
That I recall, yes.
In the whole investigation to this point?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Huh.
I got two guns. I got two different types of ammunition. It's hard to say. It is hard to say.
Neither one of them suffered very long.
A matter of seconds. Did that.
Thank you.
Have y'all been able to get anything in Paul's phone that might lead to anybody with beef?
I think he said, were you able to get anything from Paul's phone about anybody with a beef?
Let me ask you this question. Comes from Randy. I like I didn't talk to you about this, but
It's okay.
you know, they got a lot of friends in the community. You know, from the upper echelon to the lowest socioeconomic level.
What?
They think that they can ask people to keep ears out, you know, loose lips, talking, that kind of stuff, but they don't want to reach out to anybody. Not close, unless y'all think it's okay. I'm not talking about paying people to do stuff for investigators.
Well, I've talked to Randy about this as well. He posed that question to me.
Right.
I'm not talking about paying
I'm
people
not
to do
going
stuff.
to ask
What?
anybody in the law firm or anybody in the family, hey, go out and see what you can find and report back to me.
Sure.
Because then it can be construed as they're working as an agent of the state.
Sure.
And
I understand that completely. You don't even have to explain that. I understand it.
So, I mean, I told Randy, I said, I certainly can't stop you from going out. But I wouldn't ask them what they know and then report back to me. Tell them to call me. Tell them to call the tip line we have still set up. Or if you hear somebody talking about it, encourage them to call. Or give me the name and I'll go call.
I hear what you're saying.
So David, we don't have not anything substantive that really makes you think, hey, this is a good.
We don't, like I said, the only DNA we have are family and close friends. We don't have any fingerprints. We don't have, unfortunately, we don't have any shoe wear or tire wear impressions because it rained that night. The only thing that we can go off of are the cell tower dumps, or you know, the FBI was out and they were out on your property on Friday riding around trying to get some cell phone data. Unfortunately, all of that takes time.
And y'all had to send because his vehicle's new, you had to send that off?
Yes, sir.
So it's not like when we hire experts, they come in and just download it.
It's 2021 and they don't have the systems for it yet.
Gotcha.
But they're working near creating a system, from what I understand.
Okay. Now, I don't know exactly how the OnStar thing works. I know how the control module works. But this is something different, right? Or is it all contained in the same thing?
There are two different systems that we took out.
Yeah.
One, or the other one is the telemetry system or infotainment center.
Yeah.
And the FBI says there is information there.
Yeah.
They just have to be able to extract it and put it in a report.
Sure. Okay. So you're just waiting for that?
I'm waiting on the search warrant from OnStar to see what kind of information they can give me.
Good.
None until the middle of fucking trial.
Signing something expedites that. I told you we'll get. I don't own the car, but
They want to try to
we need to. We'll
expedite
sign
it.
whatever authorization you need.
How can we help?
So you had said that, or maybe Jim told me or something about y'all were able to get a pulse phone just with a search warrant?
We have a what they call a partial download.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the passcode.
Sure.
We can't do a full extraction.
Do you think, so, you
They're
know,
trying
my
to find out
thought
what they're
was
going to know about the car. Interesting.
that, I don't know who's required to authorize Apple to open it.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was that big thing where they weren't going to do it
Yes,
for whatever case. But I thought that if we, I think Maggie owned the phone. I think it was in her name, the account was in her name.
Well, you have to have your own separate iCloud account for each phone. And we've done that for Maggie's, Paul's, and Alex.
Okay.
iCloud accounts.
Yeah.
To see if there's anything in there.
Yeah.
There was nothing in Paul's. I'm still waiting on Maggie's.
Maggie did back hers up.
and stuff. I know that. Does that mean Paul didn't back his up?
Probably.
Okay. But what my thought was, and I don't know if this is even possible, but if we get the estate and we get the personal representative who is now the authorized person to authorize it to be opened. I mean, surrounded by 100 lawyers. We get a probate done like that, and I can have the powers of appointment done in 2 days, and we can authorize whatever it is you need to open.
And that might be beneficial.
So
I think Randy and I, or somebody and I talked about that before.
Yeah, well, and I said I'd do it if any of us can.
Yeah. Who would be the representative? Just somebody at a law firm?
Probably one of your brothers.
They are trying to help.
I would think.
For Maggie and Paul's estate?
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably me, or one of my brothers, but whoever it is, it doesn't matter. Whoever it is will do whatever y'all need to do to, no,
And
it
the
won't be
defense is saying,
anybody
look
that'll be
how
uncooperative.
cooperative. They're so cooperative.
Well, I
That's
mean,
the
if y'all go ahead and
defense's
start working on
argument.
that.
They're so cooperative.
Then we'll reach out to Apple and figure out how we get that accomplished.
Right. Because gotta be something there.
This is mostly Corey Fleming talking. Being cooperative?
I mean, have y'all had to track down all the wackos on the internet? Or just only the ones that you think seem a little more, not the opportunity and the inclination,
There's been a few that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But some of the information is just so far-fetched. I talked with one guy. He called in and says, well, I knew that Maggie's son bought a house right around the corner. I'm like, okay, well, no, they didn't. That Maggie had left her husband some time ago and was going to move to Florida to be closer to her father because the mother was dead. And I'm like, okay, thank you, God.
So it's a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, people that want to get involved.
Yeah.
People that think they have some information.
I use wackos and randos synonymously.
Especially the manner of death. They're all over the place.
The randos.
Well, I mean, y'all been taking a licking in the press about not disclosing stuff, but Jesus Christ, man.
I don't have anything to disclose.
Well, and why are you going to tell the bad guy what you got?
Thank you.
I mean, I just don't understand it. I mean, look.
Nobody wants to know more than this man right here and this man right here.
I know.
Everybody else.
I believe that.
Everybody else.
David, how far apart in town were the shot? And did one of them know the other one was dead? Or had been shot?
Oh, he's changing the topic real quick. Interesting switch of topic.
I think it is impossible.
But you certain Paul was shot first?
I believe he was. I'm not certain. I believe he was.
Maggie would have known that then, wouldn't she? You don't know how soon afterwards she was shot?
And it all depends on how many shooters were there.
He should ask him, what do you
I mean,
think?
if we're looking at two shooters, it could have happened at the same time. If we're looking at one shooter, it would have happened. And I know you can't help but think about it, but don't beat yourself up over getting the answer. It's not going to do anything to you.
When I asked you, now that you talked to me, are you willing to, if some of my family, Maggie's mom and dad or sister, are you willing to talk to them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'll meet them where they want to.
It would be easy if you could meet them faster than that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I live in Charleston, so it's nothing for me to shoot up to Somerville and meet with the Brandstetters.
There's a very good Big Bad Breakfast in Charleston, just saying. I like
Thank
Charleston
you.
a
I
lot.
know y'all are doing everything you can. And I
why
don't
they're
take
asking you
any
questions.
personal offense at you asking me these questions. I know you gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, I mean, and I hate to give any credence to the media, but with the media keep throwing you in there, then
You gotta ask the questions.
if I can get every bit of evidence possible that's going to exonerate.
I like that he's blaming the media. It's great. It's like, oh, you know, the media, they're throwing you in there, so we gotta ask. It puts them on the same side. It's a smart interview technique. It puts them on the same side because they've already complained
You
about the
said
interview.
earlier Maggie
He's
didn't
like, I
like
got you.
staying up there by herself.
Yes, sir.
Was there any kind of, I know we asked you once before in one of the earlier interviews about cameras, and have y'all talked about doing any kind of camera system out there, you know, stuff getting missing, you know, Maggie talking about stuff getting missing. We're hearing that type of stuff, so.
We never really had problems with stuff missing, but we still talked about getting, you know, cameras and, you know, doing all of that, but we just haven't done it. We've talked about it for a while.
But not really any conversation about stuff up and walking away or getting missing between you and Maggie.
Any conversations between me and Maggie about stuff?
You and Maggie or you and Paul, either one about stuff that had been missing or had somebody came up and taken from the bar or from the house or anything like that?
Only thing that I can remember being discussed missing was some drills and some Milwaukee tools.
How long ago was that?
Couple of
I'm here for just letting it play
it
out.
was since CD.
Throwing
God.
CB under the bus.
Hired, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Because that was one of the things Paul, when he was looking for him, was going to ask CD. And I'd had a boy working out there.
Okay.
And he basically did what CB does now?
No,
Or something?
he came in and was, you know, just trying to, because I didn't have anybody working out there, just to kind of keep things from getting totally out of control. He came in and, you know, he does that for another friend, works with another friend, and he's just kind of coming in to help me, you know, probably I believe he probably would have been there in the late fall, probably, I'm guessing.
Is he from Hampton or Multibro?
He's from Beaufort, I believe, originally, but he lives up in, he lives between Beaufort and, I'm trying to think of the name of the plantation that my friend Barrett Bowler has. That's who he works for.
Barrett Bowler.
Yeah, Junior. Yes, but it's both wares how it looks. B-O-U-R.
Tim Bowler,
Yeah, no, Tom Bowler. Yes, sir. He was like one of my granddaddy's contemporaries. And now there's a Tom Bowler that's kind of just retired. And they are, I think that's
They're kin, but not super close.
Interesting.
How old is Matt? Ish.
I'd say he's 35. Like that. Maybe.
Do you still have his number?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have his number in my
I'm
phone.
going to answer this at the break. It's a good question.
Y'all get it, but I can get it.
It's not uncommon to see investigators walk out of the room, and sometimes both to walk out of the room, allow it to record, and leave and let people sit there. Sometimes they talk to themselves. You get a hot mic moment. You can learn a lot when you're not in the room. So I'm not surprised he just got up and walked out. What I always hated is when officers were doing these interviews, they got up and walked out of the room and went to the bathroom and didn't turn their mics off. And I'd be like, oh, man, So, it's definitely a investigative technique to leave them be for a minute. All right, I'm going to answer some questions while we're waiting for him to come back. Y'all can continue to watch Alec Murdaugh as he sits here and waits. Law and Lumber said, wait, really? Oh, yeah. If they forget to turn the audio off, you can't edit it out as the prosecutor.
I had to step out and use the restroom.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, actually went to the bathroom. It actually happens. If they don't turn the mic off, when you turn over, especially if they're interviewing with a mic on them and the room mic'd, they will forget to turn it off. And they will hot mic in the bathroom. It absolutely happens. And you can't edit it out. You turn it all over because you can't edit a police interview. You have to talk to the defense and put it on the record that you're doing that. So, Shady Millennial says as long as you hear them washing their hands. Oh no, not always. Oh no, not always. I mean, yeah, not always. Holly said the on the live clause had expired, not the insurance. We'll see about the insurance. So far, the evidence that the jury has is that there's no insurance. Nicole Watson, will Eddie testify? Maybe in the rebuttal case.
I just text the guy to send it to me.
I will note that when I film for television, when I film things for television, I always unplug the wire on the mic pack when I have to go to the bathroom, and normally take out the pack from my pants so that it doesn't fall into the toilet, but take out the mic pack and unplug them always. And it's because of that experience. And I talk to sound people, and they're like, oh, we never really thought about that. I'm like, I always unplug it. Always, always, always. I don't need a hot mic of me going to the bathroom. I can't hear what he's saying in this. I'm going to watch this video again once it's released. It'll be up on everywhere that gets the evidence, I'm sure.
The pair of guns that you bought for the Christmas presents, they were matching set, right, other than color. Am I right about that?
Yes, sir. They were exactly the same.
With thermal night vision and stuff like that. The one that you purchased to replace the lost one, did it have any kind of optics on it? Night vision scope, anything like that?
It didn't have a night vision scope. And I don't know if Paul had put something
Good point, Shauna Michelle.
on it. He would move scopes around from gun to gun to gun, but
Ladybug, the jury doesn't know that sister was scratched out of the will.
oh,
What happened? Is there another video? Rob said, can you please do me a favor and explain why the state has a problem if one or two jurors believe he paid for the hit but didn't pull the triggers?
2:20.
Oh, we're breaking for lunch. That happened unexpectedly fast. That's the fastest thing that's happened in this damn trial is this judge getting off the bench for lunch today, which I appreciate because I am also quite hungry. Okay, I guess we're breaking for lunch until 2:20. Which means I will be back here ideally 5 minutes before that. So I'll be back at 1:15 p.m. Central Time so we can talk. I'm going to try to do a quick summary, answer some questions, and then I'm going to take a bounce for lunch. I've seen people asking in the chat very kindly why I don't bring people on for lunch. I run streams by myself. I try not to eat on stream too much, and I have to take a break and synthesize information and the rest of it. So, and I'm still not done with quick bits. So I use the lunch break to work. And there are times at lunch when I actually have meetings with my team squished in there. So I truly, this trial, am so busy. I do not have time to bring people on. So I appreciate that, but I know people will cover stuff on their own channels, and that's always easy to find. So Law and Lumber, can you do me a favor and explain why the state has a problem if 1 to 2 jurors believe he paid for a hit but didn't pull both triggers? Yeah, because they charged him with first-degree murder. First-degree murder means he formed the intent to do the act and then did the act. I need to look at South Carolina's law. They did not charge him with hiring someone. They did not charge him with aiding and abetting the murder. They charged him with doing the murder. So if there are jurors that believe that he did not pull the triggers, they can't convict him of first-degree murder, which means they would be not guilty jurors, which is why I keep talking about this jury could hang. As much as this chat is hung right now, I mean, hey-o. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it like that, chat. I didn't mean it like that, chat. But a lot of the chat is like, I think he did it. I think he didn't do it. I think the state hasn't proved it. I think he's involved, but the state hasn't proved that he pulled the trigger. None of y'all are on the same page. None of y'all are on the same page. So that's where we're at right now. But if some of the jurors believe he paid for a hit or he was involved but didn't pull the trigger, they can't convict him of first-degree murder. And that's a problem. Do you think Murdaugh gave the interview because he thought he was smarter? Of course he thinks he's smarter. You can just tell. And I need to watch this interview again. Here, let me do a quick summary. Thank you, chat, for helping me stay on track. Hold on. We're going to do a quick summary. We have to do a summary of what just happened. All right. Chat. All of you, let's summarize. We haven't done this yet today. We needed a pickle cleanse. We've cleansed with our pickles. Also hung. We've kind of. I mean, we could. Emily, put down the fucking pickle, Emily. You're gonna get yourself in trouble. Yep. Okay. We are now seeing the third interview. I think, and I have not praised the prosecution much. I think that the prosecution did a very good job in scheduling this to play at the very end of their case. Because once we heard all the other testimony, when you're watching this particular interview, are you sitting in the chat going, that's not what this witness said. That's not what this witness said. Are you checking what he's saying against all the other testimony? Because if you're doing that, the jury is absolutely doing that. They are checking it. Hey, why did he say 45 minutes to an hour? Miss Shelley said 20 minutes. Hey, it's after this that he's telling Blanca he's wearing a different shirt than he's wearing. You can see the wheels turning. You can see him getting caught in inconsistency after inconsistency after inconsistency in this interview. And with a case that's circumstantial, the voids of information are what the prosecution needs to argue. It's not what's present. It's what's missing in this case. The guns are missing. And when he said, so family guns were used, Alec didn't say, how do you know that? My guns couldn't have been used. Are you saying that my child was murdered with his own fucking gun? Is that what you are telling me, detective? Lieutenant, sergeant, agent, special agent, senior special agent, whatever. Is that what you're telling me? You're telling me that this fucking horrific thing happened and my child was killed with their own guns. How did someone get these guns? That's not what he said. He nodded. We know that family guns were used, and he nodded. Then he talks about the clothes. Then the clothes are missing. And we know that from other witnesses. So now the jury can start to piece together with this interview all of the things that are missing. All of them. Where are the guns? Where are the clothes? Where is the DNA of somebody else? Where are the tire tracks of someone else? I mean, or aren't there? Because he's driving all over the place too. Where are the weapons that don't fit with this family? Where are the things that indicate someone else was there? However, it doesn't mean that somebody else wasn't there with Alec, but Alec was there. There is no way that he wasn't there. But did he pull the trigger? And will, in this circumstantial case, the jury believe that he pulled the trigger when they look at that timeline? I want to go back and hear the 911 call where he said here. I want to hear that. That's the 911 call I want to hear. But will it connect enough for the jury? Will they think that he had enough time to clean himself up? Or will they think he had someone else helping him and he did not pull the trigger? I don't know. But when you have all of these consistent inconsistencies, consistent lies, and then you have him talking to witnesses to try to modify their memory, the jury is going to be very, very suspicious of that. And I think this interview is probably why they charged him. He didn't know when he changed clothes, or he knew exactly when he changed clothes and didn't want to say. The clothes that he was wearing in the Snapchat video of the tree are missing, and Blanca never saw them again. So we will see. He has lied about quite a lot, and it's not that he was traumatized in the first interview and didn't remember. That would be a very reasonable explanation, and the defense will probably argue it. But he said he was never at the kennels, and he was. And then the timeline keeps shifting for him. I'm terrible at a timeline. But if you're terrible at a timeline, tell them, I don't know. He pulled out his phone the first time. It's when I called them. It's okay to say, I don't know the time. But he's like, no, it was an hour and a half, 45 minutes. But if you just don't know the time, why are you telling Shelly if anyone asks you, I was here for this amount of time? And by the way, weddings are expensive, aren't they? I know your boss. We could get you a better position. Why that? Because if you just don't know the times, it's okay to say, I don't know. I left, I came home, I don't know. That's fine. There's just a lot. And he's in there with trying to cover something. But what is he trying to cover? Is he trying to cover that he allowed somebody on the property? Is he trying to cover that somebody else was there with him? Is he trying to cover that he did it? And those might be too many questions for the jury. It truly might. So we'll have to wait and see. There are a lot of voids that speak really loudly in this case, and the prosecution will either argue them or not. Where are the guns? Where are the clothes? And if the defense brings in an expert to lean into a self-harm theory, which would be odd for me, but if they did that, the crime scene doesn't say that. So who took the guns away? Or are they going to go with, this family was a target of a vigilante? Okay, but then why didn't Alec hear the gunshots? Or are they going to lean into Cousin Eddie? Cousin Eddie got paid $500,000 out of the fees that Alec got confronted about on June 7th. What was that $500,000 for? That's in evidence with no explanation. None. No explanation at all. We know that $500,000 of the $792 went to Cousin Eddie with no explanation at all. So does this interview do enough? And is the prosecution just going to be like, innocent people don't lie? Is that their argument? And if that's their argument, I don't know if that's going to be enough. Truly don't know if that's going to be enough for the jury. I think a lot of us are at, well, he's involved, but I don't know if that convicts him. And that's fair. The prosecution's case is almost done. But I want to see the defense case too. We've got a lot. So with that, let's keep going to some of your questions. Those are my thoughts at the end of today. The interview is very interesting. I will definitely need to watch it back. The jury, by the way, just to answer that question, the jury will have the ability to go back and watch the videos. They will be able to go back and watch all of his interviews, listen to the 911 call, and go through all of that information now that they've taken it all in, because it's been weeks since they saw the first interview. We've seen it more recently because it was released onto the internet and we can go watch it. They can't. They can't just go watch it. So the jury will have all this back in the jury room and they can sit down together and talk about it. So if it's a hung jury, do they try this case again? I think it depends. It depends on the way it's hung. No, it depends on if it's 1 for guilt and 11 for not guilt, you maybe just let that shit go. But if it's 1 for not guilty and 11 for guilty, they might try it again. I don't know if it's a great idea to try it again, but we're going to have to, I will tell you what I think about that more after we see the defense's case. So if AM involved, regardless of pulling the trigger, he guilty. I mean, not legally though, is the thing. Morally, perhaps, but that first degree murder charge has very, very specific elements that he killed them with malice aforethought. He killed them with malice aforethought. And if you think that he hired someone to do this or let somebody on the property or help them, then he is not guilty of committing these murders. He's guilty of aiding and abetting. He might be guilty of hiring someone, but that's not first degree murder. He is wrapped up in that chair tighter than Dick's hat band. He is definitely wrapped up in that chair. Can he be guilty of only one or must it be both? He can be guilty of only one. It would be an odd result, but he could be guilty of only one. They could find him guilty on the gun charges and not guilty on the murders in theory. It would be a very odd result though. On December 17th, I was a witness to a violent carjacking. Leslie Ann, I'm sorry, that must have been terrifying. And even as a witness, I had some confusion about details. I can't imagine having found my family slaughtered. I'm so torn on this case, which is fair. But this is why it might be helpful for Alec to say, do the first interview in the car. This is when I came home. This is when I saw them. This is it. And don't talk anymore. Because once you get further in time, when he keeps leaning in, that is when the lies become more apparent. Because the first interview, you're like, he just saw his wife and son. Whether he did it or not, that's still fucking traumatic. Whether you intended it or not, whether you did it or not, whether he stumbled upon it or not, whether he hired someone to do it or not, he still saw the thing. But we've also got the sister's statements that he said, whoever did this must have been thinking about it for a long time. And I thought Maggie was shot first because there's some oddities here. Oddities might not be enough, but in a circumstantial case, that is what the prosecution is going to build. The things that are missing, the things that he said, the lies that he told, the family guns, who has access, who has opportunity. And they don't have to prove motive, but they might try to. We'll see. At what point in the murder investigation did law enforcement find out about all the financial crimes? He started getting charged with the financial crimes. I'd have to go back. I'd have to go back to my timeline and look. It's a great question. I have a timeline. Hold on. Let me go back to my timeline and look. I want to look at when he started getting indicted on the financial crimes because it'll give us a better idea of that. But let's see. Am I still here? Okay, good. Let me pull it up real quick. It's a very thorough timeline at this point because a lot happened. Let's see. September 4th, he's shot in the head. September 3rd, he resigns or is fired from the law firm. July 22nd, 2021, SLED releases the 911 call. September 6th, he enters rehab. September 8th, his license is suspended. September 13, there's an investigation into PMPED. This is all 2021. September 14, Murdaugh confessed that the shooting was staged by him. September 15, they reopen Gloria Satterfield's case. September 16th, Murdaugh is charged with insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false police report. And then he posts bond and returns to rehab in Florida. So by September 16th, 2021, he'd been charged with the roadside shooting, but nothing else. So it's all coming to light at that time. The law firm discovered it September 3rd. So it would have gone to law enforcement then. And then September 2021, Connor Cook files a lawsuit. September 23rd, SLED releases a statement that they've discovered evidence of other potential crimes with regard to Murdaugh. And so that keeps going. And then Daniel Henderson, three-piece, the buttons, relieves himself as counsel from all of Alec's cases. On what day did I just say that was? On September 23rd. So by the end of September, things have started coming out. And then on September 28th, Curtis Eddie Smith gives an interview that he's been betrayed by Murdaugh. And then it starts unraveling from there. More. October 6th, PMPED sues him. October 9th, Corey Fleming's law license is suspended. October 14th, Murdaugh's arrested in Florida for the beginning of the theft cases in the Gloria Satterfield case. So on the financial crimes, he's not arrested on a financial crime, roadside shooting, yes, but he's not arrested on a financial crime until October 14th. And then October 15th, Dick goes on Good Morning America to talk about the financial crimes. So that's kind of the rough timeline. It's been a minute since I've gone back to it. The jury won't know much of that. Gablis said, this isn't swaying me to guilt, EDB. My hubby has time blindness, even when it matters for his cancer treatment. What am I missing? I see Blanca's statement differently. And that's okay. It's okay to see it differently. I also struggle with time blindness, but Alec didn't tell that to police. And the jury may or may not assume that depending on their experience. The defense might prove it. The defense might bring somebody in and prove it. And if they do, they might say he is unaware of time. But if he's unaware of time, he should say he is unaware of time, for sure. But that's okay. I think there's lots of differences of opinion in this case right now. I don't think there's a clear answer, truthfully. And that's a problem for the prosecution. I don't think there's a clear answer. What if OnStar shows he stops at a dumpster? We don't know what OnStar is going to show. What if it shows that he stops and throws the phone? But then why does the cell phone data not show Maggie's phone and his phone moving together? Because it goes both ways. Almost everything in this case goes both ways. So, as a lawyer, he should know that he would be a suspect and not say anything to police. He should. I just don't get why he had to tell the police a long story. He wanted to. He wanted to talk to the police. He clearly wanted to talk to the police. Otherwise, he wouldn't have. Because he would have known. Maybe he didn't know. I don't know how good of a lawyer Alan Murdaugh is. I've seen conflicting reports. He's a good rainmaker and he's a good people person, and people were afraid of his name and his legacy. But I don't know how much he knows about criminal cases. He never tried very many of them. Maybe he doesn't know that remaining silent can't be used against you. Or maybe he was so worried about the internet and the perception in the boat case that he had to talk to police, saying, I'm talking to police to do everything I can. Maybe he was more worried about perception. Every single interview, the internet comes up. The media comes up. Media statements comes up. It's something they're very, very concerned about. So I'm looking at time, y'all. Thank you. I am. This is my big question. Why do we not hear him once ask the police who could do this? Ask about leads or wanting answers. He does kind of at the end of this interview, but then they also ask, like, can the family go investigate? And the jury's not going to know this, but his brother, Randy, showed up to talk to investigators when they found Stephen Smith's body. Showed up at the side of the road. Showed up to see what the investigation was doing. The family wanted to go knock on doors for sure and get some answers. But my view on that is skewed. I can't answer that because I know what he did. I know what you did. I know what he's accused of doing after the boat case. And so I can't really both sides, them talking to people after the case, because him talking to people after the boat case was very clearly him trying to change and obstruct justice in the boat case for me. So it's hard for me to both sides him talking to people after this case because the boat stuff is so bad and the jury doesn't know that. So it's why I try to not put too much weight on what he was saying to people afterwards, because I don't want to overweight it because of the things that I already know. That is an area where I have a very hard time being neutral because of information that I already know. Him talking to people afterwards, I just can't be neutral on. I see it in a nefarious way because I think it's nefarious. Miguelina, can we make sure the afternoon stream is set to public? So I'm going. I've got 3 minutes to answer questions and then I'm going to go eat. Don't worry. How did he know Maggie was shot in the back of the head? He wouldn't have known that before. This is a very good question because, and I'm trying to remember what the coroner said. What the coroner said was, they had to shave a bit of Maggie's head and hair to see the entry wound. So it was under Maggie's hair. So the jury will be able to see the photos to see if that's consistent, because the jury will be able to see what he saw. But it was dark, it was night, and he said he went and checked a pulse, but he wasn't, I don't think, moving her hair, and she didn't have obvious defects to her skull the way that Paul did. So we'll see. But they shaved the back of her head for the entry wound, was my remembrance of the coroner's testimony. But again, we have not seen those photos. I don't want to see those photos. The jury will have. So if it is apparent, the jury will know that it was apparent, because the jury will see that photo. The jury will see that on the video, of the crime scene video when the police came in. So the jury will know if that would have been obvious to him or not. It might have been obviously apparent based on the condition of her body, but that's not what I remember. I'm having this nagging thought that someone from his inner circle did this out of anger over the theft, and they're punishing him in the worst way. Someone that could have known the intricacies of his home and daily life. Again, could somebody have set up Alec Murdaugh? Don't know. Do you think AM gave the interview because he thought he was smarter? I absolutely think that with every interview he's given. Not just this Alec. Today's podcast is about Alec Baldwin. Also thought he was smarter. Also interviewed his way right into a criminal charge. That's today's podcast. It's up on all of your favorite podcasting apps now. It'll be up on video later. They give you so much credit. Sometimes I hear some things I hear in this trial immediately make my brain go guilty, 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 a struggle to stay non-biased at certain points. I think, again, it's okay. You're not on the jury. You're not under a duty to go one way or the other. I think it's okay to say, oh, this is pushing me to think he's guilty, and explore that. I think watching trials like this is a very good way to exercise our critical thinking in a way that we don't normally get to explore, because it's not of consequence to most of us. I'm sure there are some watching. We've had over 40,000 people the last few days. I'm sure there are some watching that are in this community or related to the individuals involved in this case, that this is of great consequence to them. But for you, where this case is not personal, it's not of consequence to your life, you are watching justice unfold, hopefully, in this case, and we are seeing a fair trial with evidence that, there's so much that's come into evidence in this trial from both sides. It's wild. But you get to explore that critical thinking, and you get to explore, oh, this is making me think he's guilty. Why? Or, oh, is this making me think he's guilty because of things I know that the jury doesn't know? Or is it because of just what the jury knows? Did you come into this case cold and are now going, oh, my opinion of this has changed one way or the other? Are the lawyers' presentations swaying your opinion? It happens. Dick said, just because you don't like me, don't hold it against my client, because people absolutely hold it against the client when they don't like the lawyer. Absolutely do. And I think that's a very powerful thing to start to explore your own thinking, because we don't get to do that much. And I love critical thinking as an exercise. Wants to expedite, yet lies several times about where he was and when. Very, very fair. He shot M first and went back to her because she was still alive. I don't know about that. It's possible. It doesn't make sense. Quite gingery. I think I said that right. It doesn't quite make sense how the family's guns and ammo were used if it wasn't AM. An intruder would bring their own weapons. A paid hitman would definitely not use family guns. Why isn't the prosecution hammering on this? Well, they haven't hammered on anything yet. We might see. So thank you, Miguelina. I appreciate it. Once this video ends, it'll direct you into the other video if you want to go chat in the afternoon feed. As a juror, can they assume if AM lied before he's lying now? Would that be enough to say guilty? We're going to listen to the jury instructions together when they instruct the jury. There is a witness instruction about that. It doesn't specifically, it says if a witness lied, you can disregard their testimony or give it whatever weight you want. So yeah, they'll be able to assume that he's a liar. I think that's been proven. I don't know if that'll be enough for a jury in such a heavy crime. My biggest problem is Southern dude with guns and tactical gear hanging around, including plate carriers, who is worried about assassination and just found out his family's dead, doesn't put on a plate carrier. Docket's a very fair point that the jury might consider. He just goes and gets a 12 gauge and maybe carries a handgun around that he's been carrying around anyway and doesn't really do much more and doesn't put cameras on the property. He puts up no cameras on Moselle, but he doesn't go back to Moselle. He starts staying with family. So it goes both ways. That's the problem with this trial. So much goes both ways. How did the dog catch a chicken if he wasn't out of the kennel? The dog was definitely out of the kennel. Who put the dog back in the kennel is the question. And I think that's why there's been so much Bubba slander, because Bubba's a hard-headed dog, and the prosecution's going to argue in closing. Nobody would have gotten Bubba back into that pen. Bubba only listens to Alec, and you hear Alec on the video saying, "Come here, Bubba." So Alec was there moments before the murder because he was getting a chicken out of Bubba's mouth and putting Bubba back in the pen. So that is why. Lisa Hale said, I'm autistic with ADHD. The world is difficult for me sometimes, so I have not left the house for months. I hear you. I completely understand that. You provide me a safe space on the web to come and chat or just watch. I can't truly express how much you help me. Thank you so much. Lisa, you are always welcome in this community. We have a vast neurodivergent community, and we are here for you. And I completely get it. Sometimes it is just too much. And that is why I have the rules that I have. That is why the chat has the rules that it does. It's why we have the mods that we do that are incredible, because this chat is a place to come and have conversation, explore our own thinking without just name calling the defendant, diagnosing him because we don't know. We can talk about things without screaming at each other and name calling and body shaming and all the things that you see all over the internet that we just don't do here in this little corner of the internet. And I love that. It's not for everyone, but it's for us because we are law nerds, and it's for you. So thank you for being here. Do the YouTube things. Go head over to the other video. I'll see you after lunch. Is there more to this interview? I guess we'll find out. Is the prosecution going to rest? Is this the timeline witness we've been waiting for? Let's find out together in about 45 minutes. I will see you then. Okay, it's time for me to go eat. Bye. You can find all the Law Nerd goodies at lawnerdshop.com. Connect with me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. And don't forget to check out my podcasts, The Emily Show, and the new podcast, Quick Bits, summarizing everything I talk about on my Tuesday and Thursday live streams. You know, when you only have time for just the quick bits.